Was good, Giants Nation? Welcome back to another edition of the Giant Overreaction. It has been an extremely long time, y'all. Not quite as long as it took me to go live there. Definitely, I won't call them technical difficulties, but I'll call it just getting used to getting back on a horse, man. It's definitely been a while. Life has been lifing, y'all. Let's just keep it funky here. But the draft is here in just a couple of days. We're talking about Thursday here. No way I was going to allow that to happen and not come in here and tap in with the family one time. So big shout out to the gang, man. Y'all know what it is. Big shout out to the Giants Nation representing for the new era of the New York Giants, because we got a lot to talk about. I mean, since the last time I was up here, the New York Giants got a new head coach. They got a new offensive coordinator. They got a new defensive coordinator who's my guy, Denard Wilson. Y'all know I've been rooting and hoping that the New York Giants would bring in Denard Wilson dating back to 2 years ago when we hired Shane Bowen. I do think that that's going to be a fantastic upgrade, along with the head coach and John Harbaugh coming from locally my area here in the Maryland area. I just moved back to Silver Spring from D.C., so I do got a pretty good gauge, a pretty good temperature of what's going on as far as how the Baltimore Ravens fans feel about losing John Harbaugh, who is, a legendary head coach, no doubt about it. But I think this is a very similar situation to what happened with Russell Wilson a year ago. It's which version of John Harbaugh are we going to get? Are we going to get the John Harbaugh that's on the decline, possibly maybe still on the incline at this point in his career, even though he's getting up there in age? Or are we getting something similar to the results that we saw with the Baltimore Ravens? There's a lot that is going to be told this season, to be honest. We're going to figure out a lot this season. I think we're going to figure out a lot about Jackson Dart. And more importantly, with this breaking news that y'all are seeing on the screen here, which is not really breaking news at this point in time, without Dexter Lawrence in the middle of this defense, I mean, you guys saw last year how we struggled in an extreme way stopping the run, and that was with Dexter Lawrence on the field. So you got to think about that now with a gaping hole on this defensive line. How are the New York Giants going to pivot? How are they going to adjust with this draft approaching here on Thursday? Are they going to spend possibly some of this first-round capital that they just got back on filling that hole, or are they going to be thinking about the future and doing what I think would be in the best interest of the New York Giants, which is just not trying to check boxes, but just drafting dogs. Just bring in dogs who have that mentality that will change the culture, that will be culture changers here for the New York Giants, but more importantly, culture setters for the New York Giants, because we've lost our way over the past decade. And I think it's going to be on the emphasis and the onus of the players to come back and really just set that tone for John Harbaugh. A coach can only do so much, but I am placing that emphasis as well on John Harbaugh to come in and bring in the right players. But y'all heard the news. It came out over the weekend that the Giants traded Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals for a first-round pick. And leading up to this trade, a lot of people, were saying that there's no way in hell Dexter Lawrence is going to get traded. A lot of people were saying that this is smoke from the New York Giants fan base, from the New York Giants front office. And in my heart of hearts, I just felt like this was going to go down. I did feel like that. If you guys been following what we've been doing over here for a long time over here on Awthentik and the Beard, y'all know that we experimented with talking about trading cornerstone pieces years ago. We're talking probably 3 and 4 years ago. This was during the middle of the Miami Dolphins when they were in their rebuild with Chris Greer. And they had utilized trading Lermy Tunsil, who was a cornerstone piece for that team, to bring in multiple assets that ironically are all gone now. You know, we're talking about Chubb. We're talking about Tyreek Hill. We're talking about Jalen Waddle, who was just traded over to the Denver Broncos as well, and their quarterback in Tua, who is now with the Atlanta Falcons. So, you know, their plan didn't work. That is what is most important about it. But I do think that it is important that the New York Giants, you cannot be scared in this situation, because scared money don't make money. You got to go out here and swing. And I think that is something that the previous regimes with the New York Giants have not really had the ability to be able to tackle. Now, the New York Giants get back the 10th overall pick from the Cincinnati Bengals. And this screams that the Cincinnati Bengals feel like they have a window right now to win, and they are in that win now mode. And I do agree with that sentiment. They are adding more pieces to that defense, which was one of the worst in the league last year. But I think that the Giants getting back pick 10 is a win situation for us, because we all know that, at least from the reports that came out, Dexter Lawrence really did not want to be here. As early as just coming onto this stream, I saw some reports coming out about Dexter Lawrence saying that he was thrilled about this move once he heard about the possibility of being traded over to the Cincinnati Bengals. And I do think that John Harbaugh, having ties to the AFC North, I think that lended well in this situation with getting back a first-round pick for Dexter Lawrence. A lot of people thought that we couldn't get more than a second-round pick, and that was the reason why Dexter Lawrence was ultimately going to end up being a Giant, even though he didn't want to be. But now you have a Bengals defense that you're adding Dexter Lawrence to Jonathan Allen now, who just recently was acquired by the Bengals as well. They got B.J. Hill over there. They just brought in Boye Mafa as well, who played for the Seattle Seahawks for a while throughout the duration of his rookie contract. These are all guys that can be contributors. They also, I just noticed, went out there and they got Antoine Powell-Ryland, the prospect who came out a year ago out of Virginia, who, I thought was a bit of a sleeper in that draft. And I like him as a player as well, along with Shamar Stewart. So they do have some pieces to be able to build upon, as far as their defense goes. But more importantly, I think you're adding Dexter Lawrence to what they already have offensively, because we know that the Bengals are one of the most higher potent type of offenses in the NFL right now. I mean, they have basically two wide receiver ones out there on the outside with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They also have a solid tight end over there in my dog who was with the Rams for a while. His name is escaping me. Tyler Higbee, who's definitely a contributor over there. I like Andre Yosivas as their third wide receiver as well. I think that they have a lot of pieces, and I think that they can make a decent push as well. Now, Giants fans are blindsided by this news from the trading of Dexter Lawrence, but for me, it just wasn't that, because I always talk about the timeline and how things with the timeline need to align. And I just thought that the timeline just didn't align with Dexter Lawrence. I honestly think that they're going to have to consider thinking about this with other players as well as we get down the line here in the future, because Brian Burns is a guy that if his play does not continue to keep going up, he's going to be in consideration to be traded because of the timeline. Andrew Thomas, I think it's the same thing. More importantly with Andrew Thomas is going to be the health. He's going to have to be able to stay healthy. But as it stands right now, those are pieces that are obviously going to be contributors for the New York Giants in 2026. But I have a bit of an asterisk next to any player that is not really in that youthful stage of their career, which I think Brian Burns is kind of on the cusp of that. But when you look at Andrew Thomas, I think that he is a player that, who knows, when the New York Giants are ready to really try to dive through the Super Bowl window and really be able to compete not only within this division and not only within the conference, but truly compete for a championship. I'm not so certain that a guy like Andrew Thomas is going to be a part of that when the Giants are ready. We all know the capability of Andrew Thomas. He's a great player, just like Dexter Lawrence was a great player for the New York Giants. But looking through the numbers and having some of these discussions that I've been having on Twitter, I've been seeing a lot of people are emotional. A lot of people are extremely upset about losing Dexter Lawrence. A lot of people are basically saying, hey, good riddance. Basically, fuck Dexter Lawrence. I don't give a shit about Dexter Lawrence. He came into shape, or he came into camp last year out of shape. This guy looks lazy. He had, a down year for a guy that is supposed to be considered elite. Do you want to pay that kind of money is what a lot of people are questioning right now. And for somebody like me that I almost don't even want to say I cover this team extensively, but I do cover this team pretty extensively. And I look at a lot of tape. Dexter Lawrence is not only one of the best at the position right now, Dexter Lawrence could arguably be the best nose tackle that the game has ever seen. Whether or not Dexter Lawrence is still on the up and up or maybe he's on the decline or not, I think at the age of 28 years old, the Cincinnati Bengals made the right decision to take that risk. But Dexter Lawrence has been through hell and back with the New York Giants. Let's not act like this has been an ideal situation for a player to be in. It's why we saw similar behaviors from a guy like Saquon Barkley when it was time for him to deal with his contract negotiation with Joe Schoen as well. But Dexter Lawrence was here for an extra 2 years on top of what Saquon did. And Dexter Lawrence was a New York Giant for 80 losses, y'all. That has to take a toll. He was here dating all the way back to Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge, Brian Dable, and even with Mike Kafka there towards the end of the 2025 season. Defensive coordinator-wise, you're talking dating back to James Betcher, Patrick Graham, Wink Martindale, and obviously Shane Bowen. And then all the way to Charlie Bullen as the interim defensive coordinator at the end of the season as well. From Eli Manning to Jackson Dart. Just think about all the things that have transpired at the quarterback position during that time. We're talking Mike Glennon. We're talking Jake Fromm. We're talking Drew Lock, Tyrod Taylor, Tommy DeVito, Tim Boyle. So many quarterbacks have came through. One winning season for Dexter Lawrence during all of that. And I had a conversation with my homie James actually right before I went on air, maybe about an hour ago on Twitter. And he was talking about like, well, we brought in dogs and we didn't get results from that. So I don't know about the dogs. We need the leadership. That's an obvious point, right? You obviously need the right leadership, and the New York Giants have not had that guy at the head coaching position. And now that we've brought in Harbaugh, that is great. But for me, the way that I'm approaching this draft is that you absolutely need dogs. Like, the New York Giants have been trying to go after the good guy model for so long that I think that they're overlooking some of the players that have came into the draft over the previous seasons that were dogs. Guys like Michael Parsons that we left on the board there. We traded back with the Chicago Bears to ultimately draft Kadarius Toney. So I think we are in a very similar situation here in 2022 where, look at it, the New York Giants got 2 top 10 picks again. And this was the exact same situation that Joe Schoen had when he first got here with Brian Daboll in 2022. So we all know that, and this is not to say that they necessarily fucked up the picks in 2022, but they fucked up the picks in 2022. Let's call a spade here. Evan Neal has basically been a bust. He's got one more year to try to prove that he can maybe salvage his career with John Harbaugh and the New York Giants before they're going to just completely give up on him, right? And Kayvon Thibodeau at the 5th overall selection really has not lived up to the hype. You can add the injuries on top of that, where he has been injured for 2 of the seasons as well, or dealt with injuries throughout 2 of those seasons as well. I like Kayvon Thibodeau, and I don't think he's a player that the New York Giants should trade. But I do think that Kayvon Thibodeau lacks some of that dog mentality. So during that whole stint, Dexter Lawrence has 1 winning season, 1 playoff season. I think that he was just tired of losing, getting a little bit older, looking at his career, saying, hey, man, I see Leonard Williams over here winning Super Bowls. I see Saquon Barkley lead the New York Giants, go over there with the Philadelphia Eagles in the same division and go out there and win a Super Bowl. I'm tired of this shit. It's time for me to try to go chase a ring, and maybe the timeline and the alignment with the New York Giants doesn't quite add up. And a lot of people have been giving me pushback because I'm keeping it pretty cool and calm and collective as far as on the fronts of Dexter Lawrence. You know, I know he was a great player, but I'm not upset that he's gone. I just don't. For one, he's a defensive player, and y'all know how it goes over here on this channel. I'm extremely biased when it comes to the offensive side of the ball and the skill positions. That's one part of it. But I also just don't place that much emphasis on the defensive tackle position. As I said earlier, we had Dexter Lawrence on this defense on the front, and teams would just double team him and just run the ball right down the middle of the teeth of our defense. So something had to give, and sometimes you got to give up good players to reset your clock and bring in youthful players that are maybe just as good, maybe better, maybe not as good, maybe a little bit underneath. But getting that youth and building that homegrown roster is so important to me. It's been important to me during the whole time I've been podcasting. And I always give you guys this reference of the Los Angeles Rams, who do a fantastic job of parting ways with caliber players that are contributing, right? But also finding ways to bring in players to replace them and supplement for those losses. But more importantly, finding ways to draft well outside of the first round, which the New York Giants have not really had success at over the past couple of years. But I know a lot of people are saying, well, the Bengals haven't won a Super Bowl, and how does that give him better chances to win a Super Bowl? In my personal opinion, I just think that when you have the guy who is proven at the quarterback position that is a top 5 quarterback, that gives you the lane to be able to be a contender in any given season. It is why, in my opinion, the Buffalo Bills are always in it as long as Josh Allen is there. And I think that with Joe Burrow there, as long as he can stay healthy, the Bengals got a shot. The Bengals have had 1 losing season since 2021. That was the year they went to the Super Bowl. And they've only had 1 losing season since. For the Giants, you cannot say the same. The New York Giants have had just 1 winning season since 2021. And the Giants have not been to the Super Bowl since 2021. And listen, I hang my hat on those Super Bowl trophies that are in the case just as much as the next New York Giants fan. But listen, I'm getting tired of the shit too. Just as much as I can say Dexter Lawrence was probably tired of it, I'm probably more tired of it because I've been with the New York Giants for a lot longer than Dexter Lawrence has. But I do understand the frustrations, but not going to a Super Bowl since 2011 and only having 2 playoff appearances since doesn't give players that extra motivation that, hey, this seems like a team that is turning the corner. When you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, they don't have a Super Bowl, but they've been to the playoffs 8 times since 2011. So I look at them as a team that is in better position to get to a Super Bowl faster as it stands right now in 2026. And I would imagine that if you looked at the odds on FanDuel or any other betting website, that the odds for the New York Giants to make it to the Super Bowl are probably a lot less than it is for the Cincinnati Bengals. But a lot of people now are turning that, and, you know, there's spite involved. And I get that part because people are frustrated. People are angry. They want good players on their team. We have not found a way to supplement that for Dexter Lawrence just yet. So I get it now. Just be realistic is what I ask. But I can only encourage that. I can't tell fans how to fan, but a lot of people are saying that Dex is overrated. I've even seen, Emmanuel Acho go out there and say, I'm not trading a first-round pick for somebody that has 0.5 sacks in a season. I've seen people saying he's fat, lazy, basically bitter X type shit directed towards Dexter Lawrence. But one thing you cannot deny is that the proof is in the pudding. And shout out to Warren Sharp, who put out a stat that I was just amazed by. But I won't dive too deep into each number. But with Dexter Lawrence off the field in 2025, when you looked at just yards per attempt, we were dead last. Our sack rate was 31st in the league. Our EPA per pass was 27th. Our pass success was 26th. Our pressure rate was 23rd. All of those numbers are drastically higher with Dexter Lawrence on the field. The pass success goes from 32nd to 7th. Yards per attempt goes from 31st to 8th. The sack rate goes from 27th to 9th. You get my point. And that's from last season, where a lot of people are saying that Dexter Lawrence had a down year, which I can agree to that. Dexter Lawrence, by his own standards that he has set, he has had a down year. But this is like, when you come accustomed to relying on a person to do things for you, right? When they don't do those things for you, there's a part of it where you lack the gratitude, right? Because you've been so accustomed to this person contributing to your offense or your defense in the way that Dexter Lawrence has. And, you kind of try to overlook it. And in reality, it's a lack of gratitude, if you ask me. But if you look at it over the last 3 years, it's even worse. The New York Giants are basically top 10 in all of those categories when Dexter Lawrence is on the field, and they're basically bottom third when Dexter Lawrence is not on the field. So even I, somebody who does not value defensive tackle play as much as the next fan, because like I said, I'm just super enamored with the offensive side of the ball and the skill positions, and I'm willing to call out my own biases, which a lot of people aren't. I still can sit up here and tell you how important it was for us to have a player like Dexter Lawrence on our roster. I thought that Sam Block at the Block Spot on Twitter really worded this extremely well, because in the heat of the moment, you hear a lot of people talk about what they're losing, and years down the line, a lot of people don't like to address it. You could look at Odell Beckham when we traded him in a similar fashion, because even for somebody like me, when we traded Odell, I was like, we lost the trade right off the bat. There's no way you're going to be able to replace what a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. brings to the New York Giants offense. And then years later, you find out the return is a guy like Dexter Lawrence, and when his career starts to blossom, you might start to look at that a little differently. But Sam Block said, Sauce Gardner is better than pick 16. Micah Parsons is better than pick 20. Travis Hunter is better than pick 24. Trent McDuffie is better than pick 29. Jalen Waddle is better than pick 20 or pick 30. Dexter Lawrence is better than pick 10. Stop criticizing NFL teams who go for it. And I will never, and this is something that I apply to life, actually. I'll never call somebody a loser until they quit. Failing, there's nothing wrong with failing. It's about failing and taking those swings and missing and learning from those swings. My problem with the New York Giants is that they just don't want to take the swings. When we look at the previous regimes, even with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, who is still here, they just did not want to take the swings, especially at the quarterback position, until finally we got down to a last-ditch effort where we were in a position where we had to take that swing. There was not a quarterback on the market that the New York Giants could truly bring in that could be the future of the franchise. So they had to take that swing. And shout out to Daniel Jeremiah, who basically called it verbatim that the New York Giants were going to draft Abdul Carter and trade back into the first round and draft my son, Jackson Dart. And the rest is history. So now we have this, what a lot of fans are saying, light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to change that description a little bit, because this is not the end of the tunnel. And I think that's how Dexter Lawrence was kind of looking at it as well. This is a new light. This is a entirely new tunnel that we are underneath right now with Jackson Dart and guys like Malik Neighbors and Cam Scadaboo and all the youthful pieces that we have on this roster. I could take that all the way to Drew Phillips. I could take that all the way to a guy like Darius Alexander, who has not really hit the ground running the way that fans want. But guys like Abdul Carter, I include Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, all these guys. To me, this is a new start. This is not the old tunnel that involved guys like Xavier McKinney, Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, Dexter Lawrence now, and guys like Leonard Williams. So I do view this a lot differently. But I love that take from Sam Block, because you got to applaud teams that are willing to take that swing and miss. I always tell you guys I live by a quote, and I want to say it's a Gary Vee quote. I'm not sure if he is the person who coined the quote, but whoever fails the most wins, because ultimately you're going to win if you continue to fail and do not quit. The other thing that a lot of people are talking about is that this might be all about money with Dexter Lawrence. But Spotrac came out, and other people, Ian Connor came out and talked about this as well, that Dexter Lawrence basically reportedly turned down an offer from the New York Giants around $28 million per year. But the big caveat was that there was multiple years added to the contract, and he didn't turn down the price. He turned down the terms. So that goes to show you that Dexter Lawrence did not envision the end of his career with the New York Giants simply because, well, I won't say simply because, but a large part and due to how they are operating and the results. We all know winning solves everything, and the New York Giants have been losing for an incredibly long time. But with that said, I definitely want to tap in with the chat one time here. I always say this. I don't know if this show is going to be a long show. We shall see. But I definitely want to tap in with the chat. We'll start with the super chats, and then I'll scroll through the chat just a little bit just to see how you guys are feeling about the Dexter Lawrence trade as well. I see my dog Gatsby right here at the bottom of the chat right here. He's still on his Cleveland Browns stand-em vibes right now still. We going to reel you in. It might take a few years, but we're definitely going to reel you in. But like I said, let's start with the super chats one time, man. And shout out to all you guys for being here today, man. I know it's been a long time since I've been here streaming live and whatnot. We did the wide receiver 5-hour stream, which was definitely efficient enough for, I would say, at least a good 2 weeks of content. But I left y'all hanging for a couple of months. Like I said, life has been lifing. Once we get to this draft, I still don't even know if I'm going to the draft on Thursday, but I definitely got my tickets for the draft. I want to go. We'll see, man. Like I said, life has been definitely lifing a little bit. The studio has been busy, man. Shout out to my dog, Chaz French, man. We've been locked in for this new album. A couple other clients as well, too. I've been working with my dog, Dave Robb, as well. So it's been a busy, entry to the spring, to be honest. And it taught me a lot about this draft cycle. Just taught me a lot, to be honest, just about, don't put too much on your plate, because I wanted to get through every position the way that I did wide receivers. I basically evaluated about 100 wide receivers, and looking at it, it just felt like the grip that I had on wide receivers, I was never going to get it at the other positions. I got the running backs, and I was like, okay, the running back class is definitely not what I thought it was going to be. It's a pretty weak running back class. But as I was getting to defense, getting to defensive linemen, getting to linebackers, that gauge that I had on wide receivers was not translating. So I do think that in the future, I'm probably going to just tackle maybe 2 position groups a year so that I can be that efficient, because this year was the most efficient I was on a position group, and it was the wide receivers. Like, I know the wide receiver class like the back of my hand. And when we get to talking about some draft talk, that might be why I'm a little bit just a tad biased on the direction that I want the New York Giants to go in, man. But big shout out to all of you guys, man. I appreciate y'all for real, because for me, being able to just take a break like that and then be able to pull back up, and y'all just right here, and we can continue the conversations exactly how we thought we would. That is an amazing thing. So let's get to these super chats one time. Big shout out to my dog one time, F Concepcion, in the building with the 199 super chat. I'm pointing at the screen. Y'all don't see it right now, but I just, the Concepcion has me feeling a certain kind of way. If you saw the wide receiver stream, I'm a big fan of my dog, KC Concepcion. And I think that if the New York Giants do fail to address wide receiver in the first round, KC Concepcion is going to be the guy at the top of the second at pick 37 that I'm absolutely going to be keeping an eye on, along with some other guys we're going to talk about. But a big shout out my dog. He says, "Oh dang, it's been a minute." It definitely has been. We're still kind of like adjusting to on this channel as well. Just the beard had the baby. We're still trying to figure out even how we're going to enter the 2026 season. But y'all know the goal is to just raise the bar. But big shout out to my dog, F Concepcion, man, for coming in hot and starting to show off with the 199 super chat. My dog B-Rog is in the building. And I forgot what B-Rog does for a living. He's like an astronaut or some shit. And it shows here. He definitely raised the bar one time, man. I appreciate you sending in that $50 super chat. That is definitely major. He said, "Let's get this started right. Good luck to Dex. Next man at 10 up." Love that thinking, bro. We can't sulk in what was. We got to be thinking about the future. We got to be thinking about the direction that this team is headed in now. And listen, I always knew that it was at least a consideration when you're talking about coming in and stripping down a team and really focusing on trying to get the rebuild in the right direction, because we as fans have been talking about how long we've been rebuilding. Every year I come up here and I tell y'all the Giants are still in the rebuild, right? And people are like, "Man, dog, you've been podding now for 7 years, and every year you've been coming up here saying that the Giants are in a rebuild." It just is what it is. And it ain't what it once was. What we see in those trophy cases from the New York Giants is just not that today. So I do have patience that is true. But at the same time, I'm just looking at this John Harbaugh situation, crossing my fingers that he's the guy that's going to be able to get us to where we need to go. But, I do have my concerns. And like I told y'all, I live here in Maryland. I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland. I just moved right outside the city. And there's a lot of talk out here, from Ravens fans they're like, thank God he's gone. He was holding Lamar Jackson back. That is a lot of the rhetoric out here. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I am very optimistic. And I know that this is going to be a better situation than what we've had in the past because John Harbaugh comes with accountability, whereas some of the other guys that we brought in, when you look at Brian Daboll, there's not a lot of accountability there because Brian Daboll was a first-time head coach. When you look at Joe Judge, there's not a lot of accountability there either because not only was he a first-time head coach, he was a special teams coach like John Harbaugh before. But a lot of people have been telling me that, basically, that John Harbaugh is a glorified Joe Judge who had a little bit of success. I'm not in agreement with that rhetoric, but I will wait to see the results before I jump completely on the John Harbaugh train. Now, when it comes to Denard Wilson as the defensive coordinator, y'all know why I'm going to look at that a little bit differently. I will admit my biases when they are there, and there is a bias there with Denard Wilson 100%. But we shall see how things pan out. Man, big shout out to B-Rog for just starting the show off on a great foot here, one, but two, also allowing me to be able to, when we get to some other segments, show some footage, from the SEC that doesn't really fare well on YouTube that I know that this stream would get flagged for monetization for. So y'all can thank B-Rog, man. Send some bicep emojis to the dog B-Rog one time in the chat, man. He's definitely holding us down. And big shout out to another one of my day ones. My dog, Chris Peace, Fire Medic, is in the building. What's going on, Chris? Hope all is well, man. We've been talking a little bit about some of the offseason stuff. Hit me up the other day about the Commanders uniforms. They look pretty good, man. I like the take that they kind of, used on the throwback vibes and whatnot. Chris Peace says, I don't want to say it's about damn time, but it's about damn time. Hashtag AATB. I know that's right, man. I know the beard was a little bit busy. I was going to hit him up and be like, you want to impromptu pull up on the stream real quick, maybe talk some draft stuff, but I know the beard's busy, man. That toddler is, shaping up to be a left tackle. He is a big kid. He is the biggest kid I've seen at that age, man, and he's growing out of those clothes. So the fatherly duties that the beard is having right now are definitely very, very, at a high level. They're at a high level right now. So I got to respect his time. But when we can catch up, we can catch up. He texted me when Dexter Lawrence got traded. And he I could tell by the tone of the text, he had the vibes of like, I'm not tripping too much off of it. And he knows I'm excited about having that number 10 pick to go along with the number 5 pick as well. That's a great thing for the New York Giants moving forward. But big shout out my dog, Chris Peace, man. Y'all already know Chris Peace is a super, super, super day one, man. Super day one. I see the Illis in the building. He says, yeah, Ravens fans have been bashing Harbaugh forever. They've taken their shots at Lamar also. Hell, some of that fan base wanted Snoop Huntley to start over him at one point. I don't know about all that. Now, I was at the training camp with the Baltimore Ravens 2 years ago. And listen, this was when Odell Beckham had just got signed to the Baltimore Ravens. They sent out Odell Beckham first. It was the first, we get to see Odell in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. The fucking stands went crazy. The kids went crazy. Now, when Lamar Jackson went out, it was a whole different thing. Lamar's a star in Baltimore. They love him out here. The general consensus out here, they love Lamar Jackson. I remember when the contract negotiations were going down and they weren't trying to give him his money at first and whatnot, and they were kind of talking some trade talks and whatnot. A lot of the people that I know were not for that. But with Harbaugh, it could be a little bit of that X type of thing with them as well, too, like how some of the fans are treating Dexter Lawrence right now, basically fuck Dexter Lawrence. It could be a little bit of that as well with the John Harbaugh stuff, being that, he's gone now to the New York Giants. It could just be the spite vibes and whatnot. I'm not too sure. Patrick Grove is in the building. He says, I'm not upset we have 2 picks in the first 10. Yes, it's a beautiful thing, man. It's definitely a beautiful thing. Northern Mike said, welcome back. Hey, it's good to be back. And I tell you what ends up happening to me when I don't stream for a while. It reminds me of when I would do shows, with my band back in the day. When you're striding and you have a bunch of gigs lined up and you're on a tour, going through the motions of getting on the stage and just doing the show is so easy. But when you have a long lull in what you do, whether it be a show or whether it be streams, just getting back, into that regimen, just that comfortability, it takes a few seconds. Like for me, it was like leading up to before doing the show. I'm like, damn, I ain't done this in a while. That's what was taking me so long. I'm like, oh, I got to get the music queued up over here. Oh, I got to get the softbox set up and the light and whatnot over here. Then I was like, oh, the ambient light. It's just all these different things. I'm like, oh, I got to open up the DAW. All these different things that become very natural when you're doing them on a day-to-day basis. So it's great to be back. It's great to be back. And as soon as I just popped up and the camera popped up, intro's over, I'm like, oh, this is, it's a piece of cake, man. We're just talking ball here. And that's something that I love. And, out here, you just don't get a lot of Giants ball talk, man. And honestly, a lot of people, I don't know if this is across the country, but for me in this area, there are way more people that are casual ball talkers than there are people that are like draft nerds and, off-season connoisseurs and people that are, staying up to date with what's happening with free agency and people that, just know their roster. I'll be naming players on the Commanders that when I have conversations with some Commanders fans that they don't even know. And I'm like, I can't continue to have this conversation. So it's really good to be able to come back up here and just, I know that people that tune into streams at this point in the season, I know what kind of ball talkers and what kind of ball knowers they are. So it's great to be back, man. Big shout out to Northern Mike one time. In the building. I see my dog Dante's in the building. Me and Dante had a conversation through text the other day that I'm about to get to here in a second, Dante. So sit tight, man. And it was great to see Dante give me confirmation on a prospect that I just felt a little iffy about, y'all. Just a little iffy about. We're going to talk about that here in the next segment. Shout out my dog Mateo in the building. He says the Dex situation could be the same as Albert Haynesworth's situation. He was a beast in Tennessee and fell off in Washington. Asked the Beard how that worked out. Listen, man, I'm DMV native. I know exactly how that worked out. Albert Haynesworth and Dexter Lawrence, we got to watch out. We got to watch out for the type of comparisons that we make with players. And speaking of guys who went to the Commanders, I'm seeing Commanders fans making the comparison of Dexter Lawrence to Daron Payne. I'll just encourage y'all to just watch out who you make comparisons of Dexter Lawrence to. That dude is great. Albert Haynesworth was a money play, at the end, just, hey, let me go get one big more payday, and then they had to find out the hard way that Albert Haynesworth wasn't a guy who everyone thought he was. But yeah, man, I know Dexter's gone and all that. I still got to put I got to put it towards me, right? I got to put some respect on his name at all times. That's just how I got to operate. Rob says, I love Dex. He wanted out. Time to go. New era. Let's go, Giants. Can't wait for the draft. Yeah, I'm right there with you, bro. I'm right there with you. Lamar G-Man says, Bronx Tale. Nobody cares. He is not going to pay your rent. He was good, not great. He is a 330 pass rusher, not really a run stopper. If you ask me, can he pass rush? Yes. Stop the run. This is what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people going to snitch on themselves. And I think Lamar kind of snitching on himself right here just a little bit. Big shout out to Lamar one time for being here, though, right? But this is what you got to understand about Dexter Lawrence. He's not a pass rusher. That's not his skill set. Dexter Lawrence can get to the quarterback, don't get me wrong, because he's just such a mammoth of a human being. But the reason why you might not see Dexter Lawrence show up in the run the way that you want is because, one, the New York Giants run a 3-4 defense with a nose tackle, not a defensive tackle, not a 3-tech defensive tackle that's playing in the gap. We're talking about a guy that plays head up basically more than anyone in the NFL. I don't know if you've seen the statistics going around with how much pressure Dexter Lawrence has generated at the nose tackle position, and the next person in line, who was Vita Vea. I want to say Dexter Lawrence was over 100 pressures, and Vita Vea was somewhere around 20. There aren't many players that are defensive tackles that are playing natural nose tackle position in the NFL now. There's just not a lot of guys that do it as much as Dexter Lawrence, and that's not by, just by chance. It's because Dexter Lawrence is one of the strongest defensive tackles in the league. So what ends up happening is, if you look at the tape, you get yourself an NFL Plus account if you don't have one, and just look at Dexter Lawrence against the run. Count how many times you see him not being double teamed. That extra emphasis needs to be on the other players that are next to him, which is why the New York Giants were so set on trying to address the 3-tech position last year. They brought in free agent talent as well, with Chauncey Golston, who was a guy that was a bit of a tweener that could play that defensive end, could play that 3-tech, but also drafting Darius Alexander. That was his role. He was supposed to be able to play that role. Dexter Lawrence is the best nose tackle we have seen, bar none, in the last 2 decades, bar none. You might be able to make a case for some guys that could possibly be a better nose tackle over their career in the history of the game. But listen, Dexter Lawrence is up there with the best of them when you talk about nose tackles. I ain't talking right now. I'm talking in the history of the NFL. We're talking about, bar none, a top 3 nose tackle ever. So I just think that people don't understand the responsibilities as much. And that's why they looked at Dexter Lawrence like, well, oh, why aren't you getting sacks? Why aren't you stopping the run by yourself, basically? He's basically being double-teamed on every run. The game that I would recommend you go back and look at, if you really want to get a gauge of Dexter Lawrence, is the game against Washington 2 years ago in the 2024 season. Check out the first game against Washington that year. I want to say it was the first game. It was the game that was in Washington. I was at that game. And Brian Robinson was literally just running right down the middle of our defense. They were just double-teaming Dexter Lawrence. And when you get double-teamed, man, it's like, what do you want the guy to do? You want him to be a run stuffer while he's getting double-teamed? I don't think that's necessarily what his job is tasked to do. And there are times where Dexter Lawrence has been immaculate against the run. But y'all know my complaint over here on this channel has been 2-speed edge rushers, and I'm hearing a lot of people start to say it now. You know, that limits the way that you can stop the run, especially when you're talking about outside zone. A lot of the times, teams don't run dead down the middle. In 2024, the Washington Commanders did. But a lot of the times in 2025, you're seeing teams run right at our outside linebackers and our guys on the edge. So, you know, it's something to think about. It's definitely something to think about. I see Agent 101 Rob's in the building. He says, happy to see you, bro. What do you want at 10? All right, so let's keep this conversation pushing so this stream doesn't go too long. I will try to tap into the chat, you know, every now and again, you know, as we talk about these discussions. But more importantly, I did want to get out some draft thoughts today as well. I see no Mets, no Nets, no Jets is in the building one time. He says, let me see what he says here. We'll tap in with him. He says, cool, but John Harbaugh hasn't ever had this Giants roster. I guess he's talking to somebody else above. I also see somebody said that Odell is in the Giants facility for a physical performance, according to Dunleavy. All right, that's what's up. Listen, I think the New York Giants have done enough at the wide receiver position as far as those type of players, the veteran players that are going to come in on a one-year deal, be able to help, you know, some of the younger wide receivers, you know, on the roster develop, you know, having that veteran presence. I didn't think Darius Slayton was doing a really great job of that, although Darius Slayton was helping out Malik with some of the cut-ups and whatnot. You got to give him his props on that. But you bring in Darnell Mooney, you bring in Calvin Austin from the Pittsburgh Steelers. That kind of checks that Odell role a little bit as far as maybe on the field. But I'd welcome Odell Beckham Jr. to the Giants roster right now as a guy who could maybe contribute a little bit, maybe. But more importantly, as a guy that can just be that mentor. I would like to have a guy like Odell Beckham in the locker room for the benefit of a guy like Malik Neighbors. Coming off the knee injury, same school as far as college goes. I think Odell could contribute in that facet and maybe be a guy that could, you know, maybe put up 300-400 yards possibly. I could see that possibly happening. We saw that happen with the Baltimore Ravens. But I think that the Giants have done enough as far as the veteran wide receivers go. If they bring them in, it's basically going to be a null type of thing for me. It's not. It wouldn't have my emotions going one way or the other, but it would be nice to see him back in that 13 one time. No shade to Jalen Hyatt, but yeah, that would be cool. And I see Holmes with Jay is in the building too, talking about some of the Odell stuff. But let's get off into some of these Giant overreactions. And today I'm going to use a few of the overreactions just to kind of make a few points. The first one's going to be a super quick point. I almost really don't even think this is an overreaction. I think all you guys are going to react to this one basically the same. But for those of y'all that are new here, that's a good one. But for those of y'all that are new here, the way it goes is I'll put a statement up on the screen. If you think that statement is an overreaction and you don't agree with it, I need you to spam an O in the chat and tell me why you think that statement on the screen is an overreaction. If you agree with the statement on the screen, I need you to put a U in the chat, which means you're going to be taking the under. And that means you do agree with the statement on the screen. And if you need a little bit more time, draft is on Thursday. Some of these aren't necessarily draft specific, but if you need a little bit more time, you can put a P in the chat to represent that you are taking the push. I see Jameson is in the building one time. I see Gregory's in the building. Y'all representing them Dallas Cowboys in here one time. Y'all also got 2 picks in the first round. Big salute to y'all. Looking forward to seeing how that pans out for y'all and how it pans out for us. But without further ado, let's get off into this first Giant overreaction that will continue the theme on the Dexter Lawrence vibes one time here as we continue the conversation. All right, this one comes from my dog, Sky Luke, I believe it is, one time. He says the Giants' interior defensive line room is a nightmare right now. And this is the one that I said that y'all are probably going to agree on this one. I do not think that this is an overreaction. I'm taking the U straight up. I'm taking the under. I do think that the New York Giants defensive line is definitely in shambles right now. You know, there is a bit of a, I would say a misguided perception that the New York Giants, for the past 2 years, this has been the rhetoric around the New York Giants, that they have one of the best defensive lines in the league. While we had Dexter Lawrence, while we acquired Brian Burns, while we brought in Chauncey Golston from the Dallas Cowboys, we drafted Abdul Carter, we still had Kayvon Thibodeau on this roster as well. I don't think, even with Dexter Lawrence, that this is one of the best defensive fronts in the league because our edge rushers are lean. And you brought in Abdul Carter, who really, you know, I had my questions about Abdul Carter when I looked at his tape from Penn State coming out last year, right? And they weren't like these like overwhelming questions, but I was just like, wow, this guy does look a little bit like on the lighter side to me. When I looked at the tape on the All-22, he just didn't look like a massive presence up front on that D-line. When he got to the New York Giants facility and he put on that 51, that Brian Cox number, I thought he looked a lot bigger on the field. But he still plays like a guy that relies on his quickness and his agility to get to the quarterback. And I think Abdul Carter is going to be a fantastic player for the New York Giants. But I do think that when you address this defensive line, we need to bulk up this defensive line, especially now that you've lost Dexter Lawrence. The 3-tech position is still a glaring need for the New York Giants, but y'all know that I don't always like to approach the draft via need. This does leave behind a gaping hole at defensive tackle for the New York Giants. Now you just got Darius Alexander, Elijah Chapman, who was basically a fringe roster guy last year. He didn't make the initial 53-man roster and then ultimately ended up making the roster later on in the season. Roy Robertson Harris, who we brought in, who, you know, last year did make the 53-man roster. And I think Roy Robertson Harris is probably the best thing we got right now as far as the interior portion of the defensive line, which that's very scary. You know, you got Darius Alexander there. They brought in Sam Roberts from the Atlanta Falcons. He played with the Falcons in 2025, had a couple of other destinations that he played for previous to that. He's still relatively young. You still got, they brought in from the Kansas City Chiefs, Marlon Tuipulotu. He played with the Chiefs in 2025. I believe he played with a couple other teams before that. But there's a lot of holes now up front. And I thought that there were still holes up front, even at the edge. You know, like, I just thought that as far as rotational pieces go, yeah, you got Kayvon Thibodeau coming back from an injury, but there are a lot of trade talks around Kayvon Thibodeau right now. And I don't think that the New York Giants should trade Kayvon Thibodeau because now you're going to open up another hole. But at the same time, I don't think that the New York Giants are necessarily ready to go out there and compete for a trophy right now. I think the New York Giants could go out there and possibly shock a lot of people and maybe compete in the division this year, possibly compete in the conference and maybe be knocking on the door of, you know, a playoff berth. It would not completely shock me, but I don't look at the Giants right now as a team that's ready to win. They brought in a couple other pieces. They brought in Isaiah Likely offensively. I think that's a great move. It's probably the best offseason move that the New York Giants have made, but there are still holes that they need to address on the offense. I mean, bringing in Calvin Austin and Darnell Mooney does not change that this New York Giants offense is basically the same offense that Daniel Jones was operating out of when Malik Nabers was a rookie. You've shuffled a couple of pieces now. Yeah, it's not Tyrone Tracy, it's Cam Scadaboo, which that does give me a little bit more hope at that position, but the injuries is what brings me back down to earth with Cam Scadaboo and Malik Nabers coming off of serious leg injuries. So offensively, I think they need to address. Defensively, they spent a good chunk of the 2025 NFL draft addressing the defense last year. And I thought that, you know, we overlooked a lot of wide receivers on day 2 that we could have drafted, you know, and brought in that could have possibly been in that realm of guys who are now turning the corner. You know, I looked at Trey Harris as a guy that could have been that, although he didn't hit the ground running with the Chargers. I looked at Jaden Higgins as that as well. And towards the end of the year with the Texans, he started to turn the corner. Jalen Noel, I looked at him like that. There were a bunch of wide receivers in the draft last year I thought you could have addressed, but the Giants decided to, you know, trade up, get their quarterback, which y'all know that was my guy. You know, there was all this Shedeur Sanders talk. I was Jackson Dart and Cam Ward talk. That was where I was at with it. And I'm glad the New York Giants ended up bringing him in. But then they drafted Darius Alexander out of Toledo in the 3rd round. And if you don't address this interior defensive line, you're going to need some massive upgrades at that position, or you're going to need a massive leap from Darius Alexander. And from what we saw last year, I'm not quite sure Darius Alexander is going to take the leap that Giants fans necessarily want to see out of a guy who was drafted in the 3rd round just a year ago. Now, Ian Rappaport talked about the Kayvon Thibodeau situation as far as the trades go. And Ian Rappaport said this like literally just an hour or two ago. He said the Giants, who had gotten trade calls centered around edge Kayvon Thibodeau for the last few months, are now considered less likely to trade him following the blockbuster deal sending Dexter Lawrence to the Bengals. And he ended it by saying, sources say. Now, I think any source with any type of common sense would say that, because you would think that, okay, you lost a player from the defensive line. Why would we go out there and trade another one? Now, the only instance that John Harbaugh, in my opinion, will go out there and trade Kayvon Thibodeau is if he's looking at this as, look, we need to get rid of all of these old assets that I do not deem as contributors moving forward. So I wouldn't rule it out. But when you see Ian Rappaport come out and say that, it makes you think about it a little bit. For me, if you do end up trading Kayvon Thibodeau before the draft, you absolutely got to spend one of these picks to help that defensive line in some capacity. We'll talk about some of the players that I'm a little bit more enamored with here in a second. Once we get out of this segment, I just want to take a little bit of a quick gander to just see how everybody's feeling about the defensive line right now. Because for me right now, this is nowhere near an overreaction. I just wanted to kind of put this statement on the screen so we could have the conversation. And it does look like most of y'all are taking the under on this one and agreeing with the statement on the screen. And that's where I'm at with it too. Let me see what Lamar talking about here. I know we were having a conversation earlier. Lamar says, I don't think John wanted to deal with the drama with Dexter Lawrence. John is building something we hope that will be great. Dex is still good. $30 million. He wants Giants to offer him 29, I hear, and he turned it down. So yeah, as I said, I don't know if you put this in. Let me see. You said 151, so you might have said this a little bit before I said it. But it was reported that the Giants offered him $28 million. And the terms of the deal were just longer than what he got with the Bengals, and he didn't want to have that long contract with the New York Giants. Is that 100% facts? Obviously I can't stamp that as 100% facts, but those are the reports that are coming out. I think Dexter Lawrence really just looked at his career like it's time to move on, man. He's been here through all that bullshit I stated earlier. And that's not an excuse, as a lot of people on my Twitter page thought I was like making up an excuse for Dexter Lawrence. Nah, it's not that. It's just I respect the business part of this. Dexter Lawrence is looking at this as maybe I got 3 to 5 years left. It's just like anybody that's hitting the end of their life. You get, when you hit 40, I'm 42, about to be 43. When I hit 40, my life goals and the way I approach life, it changed, because I started looking at it, and y'all know I say this on the pod a lot, like, man, I might have 25, 30 good more summers left. So I need to start living those summers just in a little bit better of a fashion, and start really looking at my time as it's more valuable. And maybe Dexter Lawrence looked at it like that as well, but I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. DZook2910 says that would be a full wide receiver room if they sign him and draft Tyson after signing Mooney and Austin to add to Slayton and Neighbors. It really would be. And if you look at the way that the New York Giants have operated with the wide receiver room over the last, say 5 years, it was, a lot of it was keeping 6 wide receivers by the time we got to the 53-man roster. Now, you got Malik Neighbors. They still got Hodgins on the roster as well, but you got Malik Neighbors. You got Darnell Mooney on the new deal. You got Calvin Austin. I don't think that those guys would be camp bodies, to be honest. I really don't think that. But also, why would they be bringing in Odell Beckham for a physical and a workout? That's kind of weird too. But then you still got Darius Slayton. So in my opinion, that's 4 guaranteed wide receivers that are guaranteed to make the roster. Excuse me, unless somebody gets cut like a Darius Slayton or traded. It's possible. But if it's 6 and they're going to draft a guy, if the Giants do not draft a wide receiver on all 3 days of the draft, I will be completely fucking shocked. I really would be. That would be 3 years or 2 years in a row, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be 2 years in a row. I think the draft before that, was Malik Neighbors in the first round. They need help. They need help as far as the youthfulness at the wide receiver position as well. Like, I don't look at Darnell Mooney on a 1-year deal as a future piece unless he does something immaculate this year, which he has the capability to do that. Don't forget, when he was with Matt Nagy in Chicago, he put up 1,000 yards. Calvin Austin is a capable wide receiver. I put him in that Van Jefferson ballpark. I put him in that Darius Slayton ballpark when Darius was younger. He's a guy that can come out here and put up 750 possibly on a good year. He hasn't done that yet, I don't think. I think he's been somewhere around knocking on the door 500 or something like that in his career. But he's a guy that, I don't look at him as a future move. So, you don't want to carry a ton of wide receivers either. But I do think that the wide receiver is going to be the position is going to be important to address in the draft at some point. And for me, preferably, it would be better on the first 2 days of the draft, for sure. A lot of people are saying use here. Most people are agreeing with the statement on the screen. I'm just looking for the ones that have explanations with it as well. Let me see. Skate Habitat 24. I don't know if you a skater or not, but that'll be what's up. I'm a fellow skater too. I, did my thing back in the day. I just took my skateboard for a little run the other day. I ain't trying no crazy shit though. I wasn't fucking around. But on my good days back in the day, I could do a lot of stuff. But Skate Habitat says the rumors of Tyson scare me. He has significant injuries. Yeah, that's something to think about. And I think that's why, listen, if Jordan Tyson didn't have the injuries, he would be the consensus wide receiver 1 on everybody's board right now, including mine. But the injuries are a thing, and it's something that they're going to linger. You're going to keep them in the back of your mind. But the big thing about Jordan Tyson was the big injury where he missed most of his time, literally missed the whole entire year, was when he blew up his knee at Colorado. Outside of that, he has had little knick-knack injuries throughout his career, the collarbone injury, the hamstring that gave him issues at the end of this year as well. In the Texas Tech game, he dealt with the hamstring injury as well, came back and made basically the game-winning touchdown in that game, though. When it comes to a, skill set, though, Jordan Tyson is, man, that dude, my comp for him was Odell Beckham Jr., and I'm not saying he's going to come into the league and, set it on fire, like Odell did, 30-plus touchdowns in his first 3 seasons. But when I see the play style, it makes me think about Odell Beckham Jr. He definitely has that type of agility, that type of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Just that type of body control, but the one thing that I think that he doesn't have, like Odell, is the strength at the catch point. Like Odell, there were those occasional drops from Odell for sure. But when it came to making strong catches, man, Odell had strong hands, especially during his time with the New York Giants. Mateo says it's an overreaction. What if they sign Reeder and Harris? I mean, you tell me, do you think that Reeder and Harris are 2 guys that could take a interior defensive line from 0 to 100? I sure don't think that. I don't think that. If that was the case, guys like Reeder wouldn't be on the market for sure. So I can't look at it like that. I think they'll be contributors and they can help it, but that would be no reason for me to think that the statement on the screen is an overreaction. Let's see. Big Man 54378 says it's a huge overreaction because this can easily change by the end of the week. I don't know if it could easily change by the end of the week. Let's just, and I guess you're saying because of the draft, right? So let's talk about some of the guys that were drafted last year, if this can easily change by the end of the week. Some of the guys that were on my radar last year as far as interior defensive linemen, right? Mason Graham was one of them. I don't think Mason Graham came into the league and made a drastic impact on what was happening up front with the Cleveland Browns, but played well. What was my dog out of who was the dog that played next to him at Michigan? There was Kenneth Grant. There was a homeboy that Pittsburgh drafted. There was the homeboy out of Oregon. There was Tyleik Williams. Tyleik Williams was another guy that even me, I was high as shit on Tyleik Williams. He didn't do anything. I got homies that are talking about we need to trade for Tyleik Williams now because maybe he's a guy that could possibly be traded. You got, who was the other one I was high on out of Virginia Tech? Aeneas Peebles, who I think went to Miami. It's rare that you're going to get a guy, especially in this draft where the defensive tackle class is not all that crazy. I like Lee Hunter, and I like a few other guys as well. But those contributors are not going to be guys that can change the narrative of an interior part of a defensive line. I don't agree with that. I could understand taking the push and saying, hey, yeah, I'll take the push, and maybe if they can change things by the end of the week, I could understand that. But saying that the Giants' interior defensive line room is a nightmare right now, he literally prefaced it and clarified it by saying right now, I don't think it's an overreaction in my eyes. So that's where I view it. Most everybody else is saying they're taking the under on this one. Let me see what this one is. The it might be the focus spelled a little funky. I'm never one to try to like, critique people's names because I spell Awthentik the craziest, the Beatles, Ludacris. There's so many names, that we could talk about like that. I think it's the focus spelled a little funky. He says Darius Alexander had a lot of promise. He came out raw. We just need to see if he can develop. Year 2 is a good year for his evaluation. Absolutely. I don't remember the focus, the name being here, in the past, but when we were leading up to the 2025 NFL draft, Darius Alexander was like my sleeper guy. And then all of a sudden, when we got to draft week, he starts climbing up draft boards, man. So I love the pick. And you're right. He was a project, and he was raw coming out of Toledo for sure. And, there has to be patience. And I think that's why they wanted to bring in a guy like Chauncey Golston as well. But, there's no telling when a guy is going to really turn the corner in his development. And that's the part that we don't know about. But, yeah, I still got a lot of hope for Darius Alexander. That's my dog for sure. I'm rooting for him. Absolutely. Big Man said, I hear you all about now. I'm still sticking with my overreaction respectfully. Absolutely. And we're going to show you that respect over here, bro. At least for me, and my chat is typically similar. I'm never up here trying to change nobody's opinion. All I try to do is state opinions and back it with facts and back it with at least some type of validity if it comes with, we don't have facts to back it. We can only back it with our opinion. So yeah, our chat, that's what I love about this little small corner of the internet called Awthentik and the Beard, man. There's a lot of respectful folks in this chat. And typically, if people aren't respectful, somebody who's not respectful is not going to want to pop up around a bunch of people showing respect. So they typically tend to weed themselves out. So we definitely respect that, you sticking to your guns and holding your own on the overreaction there one time. I definitely respect that. Let me see. Stephen Bloom says, I do think Reader, Harris, Alexander, and Ali Hunter gives us solid depth and size. Yeah, in theory, it does. It definitely does. But, once they get out there, in theory, Dexter Lawrence, Darius Alexander, Chauncey Golston, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau should be able to stop the run and be able to get after the quarterback. In theory, right? But, that's why they play the games. And, I've seen the results over the last couple of years. So the hype that always surrounds the New York Giants front on the defensive side of the ball, I just don't fall for it. Let's see what Greg the Turd Hauler's talking about. This is my dog right here, man. Shout out Greg one time in the building. He said, Dex attracted double and triple teams and offense is still 8 straight up the middle. We can't get much worse than that when a man is being blocked by 2 dudes and our other guys still can't win. Well, that's how we can get worse, Greg, right? Is like, I don't think anybody in this entire chat today would say that whoever we supplement Dexter Lawrence with is going to be better than Dexter Lawrence is. I don't think anybody would say that, right? So with that said, we're probably going to have to take a step back if we can make some massive upgrades here in the draft and get some guys that can contribute from day one, which in my opinion, not a lot of good players out there, as far as interior defensive linemen that are going to come in and just be straight up dogs. Like last year's class was just so much better in my opinion. But I am somebody that has not been as knee deep on the tape for the other positions like defensive tackle as I have been with the wide receiver position. So, there's that as well. And, my goal is to always be as honest as possible with you guys. But it seems like the general consensus around that particular giant overreaction is, everybody kind of agrees with that one. And most people are taking the under. A couple of homies here in the chat took the O, said it was an overreaction. We'll see, man. Hopefully the Giants can get this defensive line, especially from an interior standpoint, headed in the right direction. Because right now, I understand why the fan base is a bit chaotic right now because they're wondering, okay, how are we going to solve that massive gaping hole that we have now at nose tackle or defensive tackle? Are we going to even still be running a 3-4 defense with a nose tackle right over the ball in general? That's something that I think is going to be important. The Illa says, just control the running lanes. And this is so important, when we get to talking about my next topic here, which is going to be talking about controlling the running lanes and a player that a lot of people want the New York Giants to draft. But I've been having some serious just doubt with taking this player, especially at 5. And now that we have the 10th overall pick combined with that, I have, just a bit of reserve even taking this player at 10. So let's go ahead and get off into the next giant overreaction here one time. Now, I love it when I am the person who comes up with the statement that is the tweet that we will be talking about in this segment. And this one comes from your boy, Awthentik, yours truly, speaking in third person. But I tweeted this out 2 days ago, and then I supported it with some evidence, with some tape yesterday. And it feels like there was, so let me kind of backtrack here. There was about 3 tweets that led to this. And the tweet here, you guys see it on the screen, says, "Am I the only one who doesn't want the Giants to draft Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles?" So the first tweet came out last week. And I said, as soon as I cut on the tape, I said, this tape is giving me Isaiah Simmons PTSD. And I wasn't necessarily making a like pure 1-to-1 ratio comp, but that's what people took it as. And at first I was kind of like, well, my responses were like, I'm not really, this isn't really a comp, man. Like, but this is just what it reminded me of when I saw the tape. And that tweet went ape shit. Everybody took it, ran with it. Some people saying this guy don't know ball. That's their opinion, neither here nor there. But then I supported it with a 2-minute cut up with Sonny Styles versus, who was that game against? Against Washington. It was against Washington. And I got to see Washington this past year in person, at Maryland, filming the games and whatnot. So I saw them, and I saw them during their warm-up. They got some big boys over there. There's no doubt about it, okay? They got some big boys up front in the trenches for sure. I remember seeing them warming up being like, they're bigger than our guys over here with the Terps. And, that particular game with Sonny Styles to me, it just reassured some of the things. And I kind of just took a random game. I'm not even going to lie. I just took a random game. I wanted to get a game early in the season because a lot of people were saying that Sonny Styles got much better in the back half of the season. I had already seen the game against Indiana. So I wanted to see a game that was a little bit earlier in the season in the first quarter of the year, first third of the year. So I picked the 4th game. And when I saw that game, there were some things that were good on the tape, right? I saw a guy that can get sideline to sideline. And shout out to my dog, Vach Lombardi. He's been talking about that with Sonny Styles a lot, that he sideline to sideline, he's great. And I do agree with that. I mean, the speed is there. You saw it at the combine. He is a combine warrior. I won't designate him as just a combine warrior, but the combine is why, not the sole reason why, but it's a big part why he's climbing up draft boards right now. When you see a guy that big, that strong, that fast, that lengthy, that rangy, all those things, they're intriguing for sure. I thought he was solid in coverage. The vertical, I don't got the exact number measurements, but the vertical was absolutely insane at the combine. But if you watch the tape, he has moments where he jumps that high in the game. Like, this dude can jump like as high as a Jordan Tyson. I don't know if you guys saw the reps from Jordan Tyson's workout where he does that pirouette while he catches the ball up high. I mean, he's way up there. Sonny Styles can jump like that high. I would love to see these two guys in a pickup game of basketball. They'll probably be running the floor, dunking like all hell on people. So those are the good things. But for me, I see a guy that lacks the north and south stuff that I like in a true middle linebacker. Now, if you think that Sonny Styles is going to come in and possibly play outside linebacker, then that's a different thing. Even if he's going to play the Sam position, it's a different thing, I think. But I see a guy that the pad level is a little bit too high for me. I see a guy that tackles, and this was the main thing that reminded me of Isaiah Simmons, was the way that he tackles. He tackles extremely high, and most of his damage is through finesse, which to me, we already have a lot of those players. And y'all know that I'm a guy that I don't like to draft, for need. I do like to draft BPA. I don't think that Sonny Styles is going to be BPA at 5 or 10, but I also look at it like, why would we not draft a guy who, in my opinion, is best player available, but also is still a finesse player? When we were coming into the 2022 season, that offseason, I did not have like a lot of time to be looking at tape and whatnot. So when we drafted Kayvon Thibodeau, a lot of my, my personal feelings about Thibodeau and Evan Neal came from general consensus and just looking around at, who was saying what, like trusting reliable resources. And then as soon as Kayvon Thibodeau got on the field, and I'll never forget it when he got hurt in that first, I believe it was the preseason game, where Randy Moss's, I think it was Randy Moss's son, who was also a rookie, went low, chopped out Kayvon Thibodeau, took his legs out from underneath of him, and he ended up having to deal with an injury that kept him out for the first 4 games of the year, I believe it was. And at that point, I said to myself, does Kayvon have that dog in him, like that true, maybe y'all don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but like, like Roquan Smith, like that fucking dog. Like, I always thought that, shout out to my Dallas Cowboys homies in the chat right now, I always thought that Randy Gregory was a guy that he didn't have like the high level type of career or play that, a fucking Khalil Mack has or Nick Bosa or some shit like that, right? But one thing you could guarantee with Randy Gregory, especially when he was like in the prime of his career, is that you were going to get tenacity and you were going to get a fucking dog every play going after the quarterback. Now, when I saw Kayvon get chopped out, it was the first moment where I was like, damn, is this dude more finesse? And then as the years kind of played out, Kayvon Thibodeau, in my opinion, he proved to me that he's just, it's not in an egregious fashion that he's only finesse. But Kayvon Thibodeau is more of a balanced type of player where he's not just, no holds bar, relentlessly going after the quarterback, not giving a fuck about his body type of player. And maybe that injury early on in his NFL career, maybe it did something to his psyche possibly. But I think that is more to it than that. I think that it's just not in his makeup. It's just not in his DNA, right? It's like when you see Tyrone Tracy, he got a little bit of dog in him. But then when you see Cam Scatterbull, you go, that's a fucking Rottweiler. I'm not jumping the fence. Let me give you a good example too. My brother, he runs a dog farm. My brother has been a pit bull breeder since I was a damn kid. So I've been around pit bulls my whole entire life. And there's a couple of dogs. It's mainly the dogs that he uses to breed. Shout out to his dog King, his dog Princess. I don't go across the fence, bro. My brother has this rule that, like, if you come to the farm, because sometimes I'll go over there to get my car worked on, and shout out my dog Fats, he goes over there, gets his car worked on as well. And my brother has this rule where, like, if you come over there, you got to feed the dogs, one of the bones, a little milk bone treat and shit like that. I'm not going on the other side of the fence, bro. These dogs are fucking drooling out of their teeth, bro. They look like they will fuck you up. And I've been around dogs my entire life. It's a difference. Now, if I knock on homie's door, he got the fucking Labrador out front. I see him through the glass door. I'm cool with it. I'm walking in. All right, I'm cool. But yeah, that's a dog too. But that's not the kind of dog I'm talking about. So when I see Sonny Styles, I have those same questions, right? Is he more finesse than he is strength? The same things I think about or that come to mind when I think about Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns and the whole philosophy of having two speed edge rushers on the outside. And now you want to have a linebacker playing on the inside that plays with finesse as well. So I say, all of that to say that I'm just not confident in drafting Sonny Styles. It's not that I don't think he can be a good player. It's just that I think that there's better value at the top of the draft. I think that there's better players available at the top of the draft. And I honestly think that those players are at the wide receiver position and outside of the linebacker position. I think they're at the safety position, which a lot of people look at a position that, they don't hold high up on the hierarchy of positional value. But for me, I'm just looking to bring in dogs in the New York Giants facility. And when I look at Sonny, I look at a guy that just plays with more finesse. And I figured, I wouldn't just talk about it with you guys today. I'll show you the cut up that I posted from his Week 4 game against Washington. If you have not seen any of Sonny Styles, any of his tape, check me out on Twitter at Awthentik. And I got some posts up there with some more cut ups of some of his best games. And you can even DM me too. I got some all 22 cut ups. I'll send your way, whatever. Just hit me up. I'll make sure you get the right tape that you need to see, because this performance that I'm about to show you, you have to understand that this is not Sonny Styles' best performance. Absolutely not. But I do think it will give you a gauge of some of the things that I think are concerning for a player that people, most people in the New York Giants community are set on drafting this guy at 5. And I just don't see it. So follow this, this cut up. It's a 2-minute cut up I'm going to share with you guys here in a second. It's a lot of the running plays don't go his way. I did want to focus on a lot of the plays that were, that would concern run defense, because those are the things that I think are the weaknesses in his game. But I did this in a sequential order. This is not like, I compiled this in a certain order. When you look at the game clock, you'll see this is in order in the game. This is how the game transpired. And this was a game that Ohio State was basically in control of for the last 3 quarters of the game, I would say. Washington went down. They scored a field goal on the opening possession. I think they scored a field goal in the second quarter, and that was it. And then they ended up getting blanked for the rest of the game. And this was a game where the Ohio State defense did play generally well, but when you just focus in on the player, which he will be circled, just look at how Sonny Styles takes upon blocks. Look at how he tries to shed some of the linemen trying to block him. Look at the effort, which I'm not saying that these things are poor on all levels. I'm just telling you things to just keep your eye out for because I'm only going to show it once. You can rewind it if you want, obviously. Look at him in coverage at times. In the beginning of this clip, you will see him in coverage. But the thing that I really want you to pay attention to is that once he grapples the defender on a few of these plays, because he only made a few tackles in this game, but once he does get, hold of the defender, just look at how many yards the running backs tend to get. And this is Jonah Coleman, who's a guy he'll probably be drafted on day 2, day 3. He's a solid running back. If the Giants do want to address running back, I would consider, taking Jonah Coleman. He's definitely a dog. But yeah, I'll stop wrapping y'all up so much. Just take a look at this, and then we'll move on, and then we'll also take a look at how you guys feel about the statement on the screen, if you think it's an overreaction or if you don't. But this is the Sonny Styles cut-up broadcast camera versus Washington from the 2025 season.
That opening, and you follow him.
2nd down and 8. Damon Williams rifles one across the... Back to Coleman. Jonah broke in the secondary. Jonah Coleman all the way down to the... 1st down, Huskies. Coleman again. This time got a couple maybe. Yard line with a 3-point lead. Counter. 4th down at about 2 feet. And they're going for it. Williams keeps it. He's got it in the open field. 1st down. Adam Muhammad in the backfield with him here. He pump fakes, wants to go down the middle, and he's got his man on the run, and it's Evans again. 1st down at the 23, quick snap. Off the left side, good run by Muhammad.
For Willis.
Coleman got an opening, and got 9 out of it.
Half turns, makes a nice catch.
They got 23 out of it, and now Coleman trying to cut it outside, spun around and dropped. Damon Williams has hit 11 straight passes. Make it 12 is a career high for Williams throwing the football. Back to the ground to Coleman. Hasn't been able to bust an 8. There's a big opener, Muhammad, but it's closed in a hurry. Big 1st down by penalty. At the 45, Williams completes it to Boston. Wide out screen, and Denzel got about 5.
You thinking 4-down territory.
See, the numbers are relatively even, but they haven't scored in the red zone. And we spent a long time with him, and he's really quite a kid and a hell of a player.
So I know that was a bit fast and whatnot. If you need to, when the stream is over, even right now, rewind it back, take a look at that, analyze the tape. But to me, I just see a guy that the North and South stuff kind of bothers me. And when I look at some of the linebackers that, I'm enamored with, that, I would feel extremely confident drafting, like Carson Schlesinger last year, who the Cleveland Browns drafted, and he was coming off an injury at UCLA. When I saw his tape, from the onset of looking at it, you saw a thumper. You saw a dude that when he hit running backs, the running backs went backwards. You saw a dude that when he would pressure a quarterback and the running back would step up and pass pro, he'd run right through them. I look at LSU's linebacker, who is also dealing with an injury from this past season, Whit Weeks, as just a much better prospect than what I'm seeing out of Sonny Styles. I think Sonny Styles needs to go to a team that is willing to concoct a defense that will mold around him, to be honest, because he is a smart player. One thing that if you didn't notice it on the cut up there, is the communication aspect from Sonny Styles is all over his tape. He's telling people where to go. And I think that comes from his safety instincts, because he did play safety like 3 years ago, I believe it was. So he does have the instinct of a safety. But in my opinion, when I look at that cut up, that looks like if you were to take Brian Burns and put him at middle linebacker. So to me, it's not to say that Sonny Styles is not some credible football player. I think he is a good football player, but I think that he's playing out of position. And are we willing to wait for this guy to come in and develop and learn a position that he has only played, less than 2 seasons? I don't know. And maybe there is the case that where he could hit the ground running and shit, year one, this guy's an incredible linebacker. But I got to do my due diligence by looking at the tape and see if I see it. And if I don't see it, I can't just come up here and lie and be like, oh, Sonny Styles. I see so many people that are saying the Giants need to draft Sonny Styles. And with some of the adjectives that they are using to support their stance, it sounds like they didn't look at the tape. So now my next goal is I've been asking players, former players. Carl Banks is another one that me and him have been having this conversation over the last couple of days a ton. And he keeps telling me that he respects my opinion. But my heart of hearts almost feels like Carl Banks might be hearing something in the building that the New York Giants are going to draft Sonny Styles, because when I point stuff out to him, like these are the things that I don't like, he doesn't necessarily agree with it, but he doesn't necessarily disagree with it. But he thinks that Sonny Styles is going to be a player that will be a good player in this league. And I don't doubt that. But for me, you know, linebacker, for one, if you're going to be a linebacker and we're going to draft you in the first round in the top 10, there is a bag that comes with that. And there's an extra year of eligibility to play for that team with the fifth-year option that's going to be there as well. I don't know if I want to spend that on a player that I'm not 100% confident in. If Harbaugh, Joe Shane, Denard Wilson, and the rest of the staff are 1,000% confident that Sonny Styles can come in and be that guy, then you got to just trust what they do. But for me, I just think that Sonny Styles at 5 would be a bit of a mistake. You know, I'm not talking mistake like last year when I told, you know, everyone in the chat and Giants Nation, we don't need to spend the third pick on Shedeur Sanders. He's not ready for that. This is not that egregious. You know, Sonny Styles to me is still going to be a first-round linebacker no matter what. But if I'm just judging what he brings to the table here with a little bit of cautiousness, I think that Sonny looks like a fringe first-round player. Carson Schlesinger was drafted in the second round, I believe it was, coming off the injury, which was probably the only reason why he fell that far. But even still in that draft, he probably wasn't going top 15. When I look at linebacker, I like the guys. Look, you can't call this racist, right? Because I'm black, so we can't call this racist, right? But I like a tough-as-nails white boy thumper at my linebacker position. Give me a Luke Kuechly. Y'all know me and the Beard talked about this. We had a little short that went like, you know, pretty apeshit in the YouTube algorithm when we talked about it. Like, I need a linebacker that does not give a shit about his body in the middle of my defense. I hate to say it like that, but that's what I need. I need a guy that's going to go out there and put his body on the line at all times. And when I look at Sonny Styles, and granted, I haven't looked at every one of his games. I've looked at about 6 or 7 of his games. Like, all the hard hits come from when he is, one, not blocked, or when the running back or the ball carrier doesn't see him coming. That looks a lot like a defensive back to me. And being that this is my tweet, I clearly don't think it's an overreaction, and I clearly agree with it. So for me, I'm taking the under 1,000% on this one because it's came from my fingers. That's how I view it. Damn, I see. I just turned on the chat, and this is the first one I saw. Tyson sucks. It's hard to talk ball with people that speak like this. Like, no disrespect, obviously, but like, I cannot sit from my chair at my crib and say Jordan Tyson sucks. Come on, we can say. And Casey Concepcion more. I don't know if he's saying he sucks more or if he wants him more. I don't know, but these players don't suck. That's for sure, bro. We can't. That's the goal, man. Come on, we can't talk like that. We got to be better than that. We got to be better with our words than he sucks. We got to have better adjectives than that. I encourage better adjectives than that, at least. Novice of Things says he also is clearly a safety playing linebacker. He tackles high, grabbing around the shoulders. He doesn't play with his pads. That's what I noticed too. You know, like, you want to see linebackers play behind the pads. And to me, Sonny Styles plays like kind of in front of the pads. Like, everything is before how you get taught to tackle. You know, the pad level is too high. Everything rises up. When the running back hits him, his shoulder pads pop back up and go backwards. It's not like he's being dragged, but what I've noticed a lot of the time in the games that I have evaluated is when he makes the initial contact, especially when it's between the guards or between the tackles. We're talking in the box. When he makes contact, he doesn't push the other guy backwards. And those are things that I think in the NFL could possibly get worse. And then he skipped out on the bench press at the combine. I didn't like that. I'm not saying he's weak, but I didn't like that. I wanted to see him hit the reps and show that he had strength. Instead, he opted to not do the bench. I thought that was interesting. deciding to do the 40, showing off the assets that you do well. Obviously, he knew he ran fast. If he was a strong guy, I wanted to see him hit the bench, and he didn't hit the bench, and I thought that was interesting. Skate Habitat says, I think Bane will be good. Look, we have already a crowded edge rusher room, and I'm drafting Bane before I would draft Sonny Styles because I'm looking for dogs. Love that take. Hez is in the building. He said OBJ is taking a physical. Yup, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Shout out to OBJ. FaZe says, yo, it's been a minute showing love. Best New York Giants YouTuber. Look, man, I appreciate the compliment, right? There's a lot of motherfuckers out here putting their foot in this content, though. So big shout out to them. But yeah, your preference, man, I can't change your preference. I love that one time. But I don't even think I'm the best New York Giants content creator. But it's because I'm not really a content creator. You know, you might get a good 2 months off from your boy because he got other shit going on in his life. Shout out to my dogs like Bobby Skinner, Big Dash. They've been kicking ass this whole entire offseason, man. So I got to give the nod to them. But shout out my dog FaZe. And that reminds me of a super chat that came in from Novice of Things. He said, feels like it's been forever since we had a pod. It has been forever. It don't feel like it. It has been forever. And I'm glad to be back, man. And big shout out to my dog, man, for contributing to the channel because that Sonny Styles cut up is definitely going to demonetize us. So shout out to y'all, man, that have supported the channel, helping us, get some, a couple of dollars for lunch in our pocket. In B-Rog's case, man, I could go out there and buy some shit for real, man. That $50 went a long way. Shout out to Novice of Things for helping us raise the bar as well. I wanted to get to this one from De'Illa. De'Illa said, I've said it multiple times. If we draft Ruben Bain, or if we put Ruben Bain on the opposite side of Brian Burns, that would be the closest thing that we've had to Tuck and Osi since they were here. Power edge on one side, speed on the other. Now, me and De'Illa have talked about this until we're blue in the face. We've been talking about the speed edge rushers. He's one of the only other content creators that I saw that was a real place of concern when we first brought in Brian Burns. Shout out to my dog BT Giants, who was the other person that I had some of the first conversations with, like, who are the teams that had success with two speed edge rushers? There weren't a lot of teams. One of them had Brian Burns on that team, and they didn't have a lot of success, but they had a lot of success up front, where the Carolina Panthers had Brian Burns, and they also had Hassan Reddick on the opposite side. That room had a lot of sacks that year. So y'all know I'm always agree with De'Illa on this topic. He talks about the weight of what you want to see out of a traditional defensive end. And having a finesse edge rusher is a good thing, but you don't want to have two of them. And I'm not saying it can't work, and I'm sure De'Illa is not saying it can't work, but it's tough to make it work. And when you don't have a Dexter Lawrence in the middle of that defense, that's going to make it even tougher. That's going to make it even tougher. Jart12 says, dude, Caden McDonald is working. Yeah, Caden McDonald is going to be a dude. I just don't know where I would spend the draft capital. I got to dig into the tape. I ain't going to lie. I got to dig into the tape a little more. That's just what it is for real. Shout out my dog, Bluegrass Picker, in the building. He says he better cover amazing because he's underweight. And that's the weird part, is that he's a little bit taller, Sonny Styles is. He's not necessarily underweight, but it looks like that when you just see him, like on film, even on the broadcast. He looks like Brian. He looks like Brian Burns to me, but like Brian Burns is built just like him. That's the thing. It's like, I think it's more mentality. It's more like dense bones. Some people just got that, man. Like, dude, like when we drafted Kadarius Toney, I talked about this. Like, I knew skinny dudes that were built just like Kadarius Toney that were just strong as fuck. Like, just strong as fuck, bro. Like, just have natural strength. Some people got it. Some people don't got it. Sonny Styles, like when you looked at him at the combine and you saw him, no pads on, bro is ripped. I mean, his whole neck, he's strong. He's ripped, definitely. But I don't know. When I see him on the field, I don't see a guy that plays. It reminds me of like Latimer from the program. And if you've seen the program, I ain't got to say too much. Strength was an issue. Let's see. I got that one from Skate Habitat. I just want to see a couple more opinions on this the linebacker situation here. With Sonny Styles and spending a pick that high. Shout out my dog Dante. Dante from Gridiron Apex. Go subscribe. He's got a whole 3-hour film breakdown on Sonny Styles. When I first looked at the first 2 games from Styles, I texted Dante. I would read it for y'all verbatim. It basically said, like, am I tripping? I don't see it like how I want to see it. Am I tripping? And Dante basically was like, nah, you're not tripping, bro. This is what Dante says here. He says the gold standard of any first round linebacker being considered should be Edgerrin Cooper. And he says that on one of his streams I saw. And I know that is like your threshold of where a player's got to be better than this to be able to be drafted in the first round. And I do agree with you. For me, it was Carson Schlesinger. Like, I want to see you looking like this. I want to see you flying around the field. Where's the tape where he's flying around the field, throwing blockers off of him, shedding blockers? That somebody point me to it, I posted the one against Washington. I got people in the comments of that getting mad at me like you strategically put these clips together. I'm like, bro, it's literally snap by snap by snap going through the game. That's why I do that on this channel, so that you can be the judge for yourself. I'll tell you what I think about it, but I'm not here to convince you otherwise. Dante says Edgerrin Cooper is the gold standard for any first-round linebacker. That's his threshold. Maybe other people have different thresholds, right? That's his threshold. And I tend to lean a little bit more towards that. Like, I want to see it, bro. I want to see thumper straight up and down. DeIllis says he looked like Kiwanuka when he was moved to linebacker, and I do think that too, which is why I think that, and it's unfortunate, because are you going to take a guy that was a safety that 2 years ago they changed him into a inside linebacker, had some success at the inside linebacker position for sure? Are you going to now say, hey, we need you to be an outside linebacker / edge rusher? In my opinion, that would drop his draft stock even farther. So yeah, that's tough for me. Donnell Prince said that Sonny is light in the ass. He got to get his weight up. He can be used as a nickel. Yeah, and like I said, I'm a guy that, like, I don't draft for need, but like, if I'm going to spend a first round pick on a position and it's BPA, let's say, it's not going to be nickel, considering the way that Andrew Phillips, played over the last 2 seasons. I think he's a guy that's on the up and up. So I think we can go in a different direction. It would be much better for the Giants. Excuse me. J-Dub said, I think Styles can be good. He got better as the year progressed at OSU. I'd prefer Downs or McDonald, though. Yeah. A lot of people don't want to spend the 5th pick on Downs, but what I'm worried about is that if you don't spend the 5th pick on Downs, you're going to get yourself into a troublesome situation when you get to 10 and he's not there. And then what? So Giants got some decisions to make here. They got some decisions to make. Donnell also says 4 picks in the top 105 is a miracle, and we have that miracle. It really is, man. And I got one of my homies that he's been saying this from jump, that the Giants are going to trade Dexter Lawrence. He said that from jump, and he said that the Giants are going to have even more picks within the top 100. So maybe somebody else gets traded. We'll see. We'll see. Let me see. Just a few more on this linebacker stuff, and I am far back on the chat. I do know that. But I'm just looking for stuff. Shout out JaG05 in the building, man. What's going on, my dog? Good to see you. He says, yo, what up, Awthentik? Glad to see you back. It's been a minute. Been waiting to talk ball with you again. Yeah, bro, me too, man. I've been just kind of having these thoughts on the solo vibe as of late, and just life and being in the way. And y'all know me, man. Like, if I can't bring you value, I'm not going to show up. And today I was like, oh, it's the perfect time. Dexter Lawrence trade. Had some stuff I wanted to talk about with the draft anyway. Planned on popping up and talking to you guys before Thursday regardless. So it was the perfect day to go ahead and do it. Some things kind of, cleared off my schedule a little bit and made it even better for me, because I was going to come up and just do like a 45-minute stream. But a couple of things kind of cleared off my schedule today. So, we're here for at least a couple hours today, man. Big shout out my dog, JaG05, man. He knows his ball for sure. DeIlla says he agrees with me about Bain over Styles. Raheem said, what about Jordan Tyson at 5 and the LSU cornerback at number 10? He's talking about Mansour Delane, who is actually from my hometown where I grew up. He was born in Silver Spring, Maryland. I live in Silver Spring now, and I was born in this area as well. Raised here in this area, and then I moved to D.C., around 2016, which is not far from Silver Spring at all. It's only 30-minute drive. So I'm a big fan of Tyson, big fan of Mansour Delane. We'll tap into this conversation about wide receivers here on the next overreaction that we're going to be doing right after this one. So hang tight, Raheem. We're going to be talking about that here in a second. Ben says Jacob Rodriguez at 37 is so much better. I do think that Jacob Rodriguez at 37 is better, but he has his own deficiencies as well. Missed tackle rate is a bit scary with him, but what I do like about Jacob Rodriguez is he's more traditional middle linebacker. He is more that thumper. So I prefer him just overall over Sonny Styles. At 37 kind of worries me a little bit there. I'm not going to lie. I would prefer Jacob Rodriguez in the 3rd round. Right now, we don't have a 3rd round pick. So there's that. Fire Medic, my dog Chris P says he's going to take the push. I don't know what Denard Wilson will want or how he will utilize him. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that Sonny Styles can come in and be a good player in the NFL. I just think that there are better options on the board. So, for me, it's not about Sonny Styles, the player per se. It's more about the other players that I think could be better contributors for the future outlook of what the New York Giants are going to do. Gregory said it's an overreaction. Let Dallas have him. Take him, man. I'm hoping you guys trade up and take him so that the Giants can't take him. That's where I'm at with it. There are certain players that when I evaluate them, I just go, I'm out on that guy. I'm out on Sonny Styles. It's not to say he's going to be a bad player, and it's not to say that I'm going to be right, to be honest. Like, so many circumstances will, influence how a player actually succeeds in the NFL. And, I think Sonny Styles, the landing destination is important. And I just don't view it as a good fit with the New York Giants, to be honest. And I see players that are better on the board. Bluegrass says, someone else said it earlier, he doesn't fight through those downfield one-on-one blocks to get to the tackles. Yeah, a lot of people were looking at the highlights, man, and what I noticed about the highlights, I looked at the highlights from broadcast, and I looked at the highlights from the All-22, both of them. He's not being blocked on plays. Well, let me rephrase that. On all his highlights, most of his highlights, he's the kind of guy that when he does shed a block, it's more like agility. It's like, I'm going to quickly scoot out the way or scoot you out the way and then get to the ball carrier. Or it's just no one blocked him and he gets to the ball carrier, blows up the play. I just didn't see a lot of stuff, where the guy was shedding blocks and doing the real yard work that a middle linebacker is going to have to do. I just didn't see it, Haven't seen it yet, but as we lead up to the draft, I'm continuing to look at as many games as I can and trying to find compilations. And speaking of compilations, listen up, y'all. There is a YouTube channel that I've been following for a long time that I kept, a little bit under the, just a little under the radar for people and didn't tell people about it because I thought it was that good of a resource. And me and Dilla had talked about it last year. Go check out Just the Tape. Just the Tape does compilations of every touch for a player. For wide receivers, it's some of the best stuff you can find. Even though it's not all 22 footage, you can at least see every target that a player gets, every reception that a player gets, and blocking. And y'all know how I do my compilations here on the channel. I always like to show blocking, always like to show things in, the succession, in consecutive order of how it happens. Just the Tape has, I put a thread up on Twitter yesterday with all the links. If you need the links, it's on my Twitter page as well. Casey Concepcion, Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Denzel Boston, Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt, Chris Brazel. Who else he got on that joint? Malachi Fields. There at least 20 wide receivers. Every touch, every target, every rep, every reception. Go check them out. The channel's called Just the Tape. Fantastic, value. Just straight up value. Definitely go check it out. B-Rog says, Awthentik in the beard equals focused analyst in his spare time. Yeah, I have a lot of spare time, that's for sure. But there are times where, my life can be kind of like an actor where it's like certain seasons, bro, I got to grind out heavy. And, when some of my premier talent as far as artists goes, need that work, shit gets in the way. And yeah, this whole just transitioning into 2026, I wanted to get a better footing. I wanted to raise my bar. I had a lot of resolutions and I got a slow ass start, man. And now we're looking at 4 months into the year already and I'm behind on a ton of shit. So life be lifing, man. You know what it is. Life be lifing. Novice of Things just sent in another super chat, man. Big shout out to the gang one time for the $10 super chat. He said, for those of us in the DMV, we see Bane as a Ravens type edge player and a body type we don't have. You aren't alone in the Styles hesitation. He may be great, but it's a long way off, in my opinion. Welcome back. I agree with you, bro. And, the stuff with Styles is just that I see a project. I see a bit of a project. And, I don't think that's the best way for the New York Giants to approach, this particular draft that is not really deep at that position or in the later rounds, to be honest. Outside of wide receiver, this is not a deep draft. I think wide receiver is extremely deep. I think the edge rusher position has, some good players. I like some of the corners and some of the players in the secondary as well. Caleb Downs obviously being one of them. I like the safety out of USC. What's my dog's name? Kamari. I forget his last name. I like A.J. Halsey. There's a couple of guys out there, man, as far as DBs go that I'm I'm interested in. But this draft is not a deep draft. So, you got to get your players at the top. That's how I'm viewing it. Go get some dogs at the top of the draft for sure. That's how I'm viewing that. Shout out my dog, Door Gunner, one time in the building with the $10 super chat, man. Appreciate that, my dog. He says, been super busy with work and getting to check in. Love my Commanders' new uniforms. Yeah, them joints get an A+ from me. I love them too, man. The spear design through the W, people were hating on that. I thought that was super dope. He says, we need an offensive weapon at 7. Only way Giants win the trade is hitting a home run at 10. I think that winning the trade talk, I'm going to avoid that, in this particular instance. I don't think that there's really any way you can win this trade from a New York Giants standpoint, but I do think getting back a first-round pick is the best it could have gotten. Dexter Lawrence is going to go down as a guy that could possibly get a gold jacket, man. He's one of those ones. He's definitely one of the better players that we have seen the New York Giants put a jersey on. He's one of those kind of players, and I do understand that. But I just think that, you can't win. This is one of those things you just can't win. Look at the Odell Beckham trade and how we viewed it back then. Everyone was like, oh, the Giants won, or oh, the Browns won. Nobody won that trade. I don't think anybody won it. The Giants maybe you could say they won it because they got rid of Odell Beckham before he started getting injured. But that's by chance. That's not, to me, that has nothing to do with winning the trade. You traded away one of the most talented wide receivers in the whole entire National Football League at the time. So I don't view it like that. Go back and look at the trade with the Chicago Bears in the 2021 draft with the Chicago with Justin Fields and Kadarius Toney. Who won that one? We got Kadarius Toney out of that, and who knows what else? It's like I'm gonna pump the brakes on viewing the win the trade. I just hope that the Giants can bring in a guy at 10 that can contribute. For your Commanders, I'm worried about y'all at 7 because y'all are going to be one of the teams that could possibly not only jump us for a weapon, but y'all secondary needs a lot of work as well. So y'all are another team that could possibly jump the New York Giants for Caleb Downs if they go the route of not drafting him at 5 and trying to wait till he gets there at 10. So very tough, man. This draft is going to be a tough one, but I think that the cream is really at the top of the draft. I really do. And that's where I think that both teams should address, their big home run swing. Commanders and the New York Giants. Go get a dog, man. And for the Commanders, I think Jordan Tyson fits that role. Mekhi Lemon is the guy that a month ago I was telling all my Commanders fans, they don't watch a lot of ball. So I was like, this is the guy y'all want, man. If you think Terry McLaurin has some good years left, Mekhi Lemon in the slot and being a guy who can do things on the outside as well, he's a perfect marriage. He's definitely a perfect marriage. If you want another guy on the outside, go get Carnell Tate. I just think, and a lot of Ohio State fans and people didn't agree with this, but I just think that the way that Carnell Tate operates and how he goes about his business and gets the ball is similar to Terry McLaurin. He's it's like Carnell Tate don't got that flash, right, that a Jordan Tyson has. Jordan Tyson going to go over across the middle and maybe give you a one-handed catch that just looks fucking ridiculous. Carnell Tate's the kind of guy that's just going to be all about the business. I call him shirt and tie and briefcase type of wide receiver. That's what I call him. He's one of those guys. So I think any of the top 3 wide receivers that I had in my top 10 would be a great contributor for the Commanders, no doubt about it. Big shout out Door Gunner, man, for popping up. Listen, Door Gunner, you ain't missed much because I haven't been here. So you popped up, I popped up. It was perfect timing. Let me see. This is shout out C Cuts 5973 one time in the building says, hoping Styles isn't available and Tyson is there at number 10. Love that right there. I appreciate Cuts helping us raise the bar over here. So let's just go ahead and get off into this conversation because I do want to talk about wide receivers as well. And let me see, Door Gunner brought in another super chat too. He said, Giants' run defense was bad last year. How does it get better with Dexter gone? It's not going to get better. I'll talk about it some more. But what Giants fans, and more importantly, forget the fans, the New York Giants need to stop doing is thinking you need to fill every hole every year. You need to get top-notch, superstar, dog mentality, culture-setting type players that will change things. When we had the most of those on our roster, which was 2022, where you had Dexter Lawrence, Saquon Barkley, Xavier McKinney, and whatever other dogs you might want to add to that list, I only think there was about 3, maybe 4 dogs on that whole roster. I think Richie James was a dog a little bit, even though he wasn't a great player. I think he was a dog. That was why we got those results. You got competent quarterback play out of Daniel Jones that year, And in return, having a dog 2-6 at the running back position who really won the first 6 games for us, if you ask me, that was the reason why the New York Giants ultimately ended up, dragging their tail into the playoffs that year. Would they win 9 games? 6 of them came in the first 7 weeks of the season. So there's that. But I just think that we can't continuously try to fill every hole. Then this goes back to more what Dorgunner was saying, like about the run defense, right? Listen, it might be bad again next year, and it is what it is. The run defense for the New York Giants has been bad for basically the better part of a decade. But big shout out to both of y'all, man, for sending in the super chats and helping me and the beard raise the bar over here. And Dorgunner also sent in another $2 super chat. He said Lemon and Chig would let JD5 rid the ball quick. I agree with you on that, man. Like, the only concern, that I have with a guy like Mekhi Lemon is at times getting off the line. It can be an issue for him on press coverage, but it is something that I think he will be able to get better at in the NFL. But there are really no weaknesses, in my opinion. No outlandish weaknesses in his game. So it could be Lemon, it could be Tyson, it could be Tate. If you guys go second round, we'll talk about some of those wide receivers as well. There's a slew of wide receivers. Excuse me. Let me take some of this water before we get off into this next segment, which will be the last segment of the day. Making good time here. Might get y'all out of here in 2 hours. All right. Greg the Turd Hauler said Tyson falls awkwardly when he is trying to fight for extra yards, or he ducks almost every time. Yeah, the yak stuff is interesting with Tyson. For as agile as he is, it's interesting that he can't get yak. I kind of think the same thing for Mekhi Lemon, just a little bit. Like, they're such incredible athletes, but the yak numbers should be a bit better. Like, you look at Eric McAllister, and I know the competition, was a lot lower at TCU, but Eric McAllister, like, if you look at average depth of target, I almost want to pull up the numbers right now, but if you look at average depth of target and you look at yak, there's not a receiver that you're going to find with 2 better numbers that match up. Like Eric McAllister, I just got to look it up. Be patient with me because I like being accurate with the numbers. And let me just find this real quick because I think this is important. But when you look at his yak numbers were like over 8 yards per reception. But then his ADOT is like over 14 yards. So when I look at some of these smaller wide receivers like a Mekhi Lemon, not so much with Casey Concepcion because he did have the yak numbers to support it. But when I look at them, for as agile as they are, like guys like Jordan Tyson, I just feel like they should be better yak earners. But yak is very circumstantial. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's how you're set up, how you're utilized within the offense. A lot of that stuff matters. But I just want more yak out of Mekhi Lemon, and especially, Mekhi Lemon, his yak numbers were pretty decent. But especially out of Jordan Tyson. So let me just look up these numbers here. The spreadsheet is super little, but when you look at Jordan Tyson and his yak, he's the first wide receiver he's the second on my list. When you look at his yak, it's at 4.3 yards per reception. Now, when you go to a guy like Eric McAllister, who's not even consensus top 10 right now, Eric McAllister's wide receiver like 25 on Dane Brugler's The Beast draft guide that he just released, and most people have him around there. And I think the level of competition matters. But when you look at Eric McAllister, he's right here, 8.2 yards after catch per reception. And then his A dot is 12.6. So it's not over 14. But then like when you look at Jordan Tyson, it's A dot 11.7, the yak at 4.3. Those numbers, it just screams that Jordan Tyson is not going to be a guy that gets a lot of yak in the NFL. And he has a lot of speed, but I don't know what it is. He just does not burn these DBs when we're talking about yards after the catch. Carnell Tate's another guy that the yak's not there, 4.5. But then you look at Mekhi Lemon and those numbers shoot up. And this is why I like Mekhi Lemon a lot. Even though he's my wide receiver 3 in this draft, his skill set to me would lend better to the New York Giants than some of these other wide receivers that are above him like Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson, because Mekhi Lemon has 6.4 yards after catch per reception, and his ADOT was 10.4. That's more knocking on the door of where Eric McAllister was at. Those are the kind of numbers I'm looking for. And a lot of people look at Mekhi Lemon, and the biggest knock on him is his height at 5'11". There are not a lot of wide receivers who have had extremely successful careers at that exact height at 5'11". Odell Beckham's one of them. I believe Odell Beckham is a guy that is listed at exactly 5'11". You go to 5'10", there's a ton of guys, right? Antonio Brown, there's a bunch of 5'10" guys. But 5'11", these tweener 1 inch one way the other or 1 inch the other way, seem to be guys that don't have the most successful careers. But I do think that Mekhi Lemon is absolutely going to be one of those guys. So let's talk about it. Let's get off into this last giant overreaction of the day. Hopefully we spend about 15 minutes on this, and we have, a palatable stream here for everybody that's going to watch this on the replay, even though 2 hours is extremely long. Let's get off into this last giant overreaction of the day. All right, so this one comes from my dog, Fuck Julius. He says, not going to happen, but I wish the Giants would draft Mekhi Lemon with the 10th pick, but we need other things. And again, I just want to harp on, not focusing on drafting for need, right? Because I love this statement. I'm all in agreement with this statement until he says, but we need other things. Well, is Mekhi Lemon going to be the best player on the board at 10? If that's the case, then I want to draft him. I tweeted this out yesterday. I said, being a garbage NFL team talking about positional value is very interesting. I just want dogs. I don't care what position they play, because it's clear when you are a 4-13 team the year before, you don't have enough good young football players on your roster. It seems that every year we have at least, I'll say the majority of the fan base is looking to fill holes on the roster, trying to build a Super Bowl roster every year. And in return, I think that makes us overlook and pass up on some great talent. And one of those great talents that I absolutely do not want to pass up on is Mekhi Lemon. And I do agree with the homie here, Julius, that he's saying it's not going to happen. My gut of guts tells me that the Giants are not going to draft a wide receiver at 10. I'm crossing my fingers and I'm praying to the football gods that they do. And if they do, I think Carnell Tate's probably going to be off the board by the time we get to 10. So basically with this overreaction here, you're about to hear my entire draft philosophy of what I would do. I would go Caleb Downs at 5, no-brainer pick. That dude's going to be a leader for your team. You already fucked up with Xavier McKinney. He could have been that leader that you got in the second round in that draft. Instead, you allow him to walk in free agency, and now the Green Bay Packers have a leader in their secondary. I'm looking at the same exact thing. We tried it with Javon Holland. It didn't work. But where I think that if you keep Javon Holland on the roster where things work is that now you don't got to rely on Tyler Nubin being that other safety. Now you can go out there. You got Jason Pinnock. You got Javon Holland. And you would have Caleb Downs on this roster. And Tyler Nubin, maybe a depth role or something like that. We already lost Dane Belton as well. But for me, that would lock in your future youthful leader of the back end of that defense in this draft immediately. At pick 10, I'm going Mekhi Lemon. And I'm going Mekhi Lemon even if Jordan Tyson is there. And it's simply the injuries. I learned my lesson with Michael Penix. Ignoring injuries is not a good thing. When a player has injuries leading up to a draft, especially the kind of injuries that a guy like Jordan Tyson has, you have to at least observe it and take it into your evaluation. Mekhi Lemon is a guy, on the other hand, that does not get hurt. Also was the Biletnikoff winner this past year, and that might scare some people thinking about Jalen Hyatt, but this is a totally different wide receiver with a pure alpha fucking mentality, y'all. And why do I emphasize that alpha mentality with a fucking, right? Is because what are we trying to build here? What did we see last year that gave us a little bit of hope for the future? And man, we got some dogs on this roster. That was the quarterback that they drafted, that they traded up to draft. And that was the running back that they drafted in Cam Scatterbu. Those two players were able to come in against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I hate to say I told you so, but I fucking told you so. I came up here during the week of playing the Chargers, and I said, fuck it. Start Jackson Dart now. Just imagine what it could do for this kid's career. And at the time, I also said what it could do for Brian Dable, who was obviously on the hot seat if he were to come out here on Thursday Night Football in one of the two matchups against the Philadelphia Eagles and be able to get a W in conference We hadn't beat Philadelphia in a grip. We haven't beat Philadelphia in Philly since 2013, and that still stands. But Jackson Dart went out there and beat Philly. He went out there and competed for those first 2 games and showed you who the fuck he was. Then he went out there against the Denver Broncos, and the fourth quarter went pretty shitty, right? Now, in the games leading up to Brian Dable being fired, Jackson Dart went 7 games with multiple touchdowns. And if you've been paying attention to what I talk about over here on Awthentik and the Beard, and you've been a part of this chat, you know that Daniel Jones went forever. Like, think about The Sandlot. When Squints was talking forever, Daniel Jones went forever without having multiple games back-to-back with 2 passing touchdowns. It was an egregious number of games, right? It was like 40-plus games that happened. So when I see my quarterback go out here and put up multiple touchdowns in 7 straight games, whether they're with his legs or with his arm, that is something that you know you can build upon. And he showed us the mentality that he plays the game with. They were telling him, you need to slide. You need to slide. Even after the Chicago Bears game where he got his head taken off and fumbled the ball, basically lost Brian Dable his job, got Brian Dable fired, right? You know, this dude still comes back to the podium a couple of weeks later like, look, I've been playing football like this my whole entire life. Fuck y'all. I'll slide when I think it's necessary. That's basically what Jackson Dart said. I like the mentality. Obviously, he's going to have to find a way to clean it up a little bit, and he did, obviously. But that mentality is why I want to bring in Mekhi Lemon. And that's just part of it. The production was there. I like wide receivers who have the production in college. It's why I was a guy that was not too high on Ladd McConkey coming out of Georgia, because Ladd McConkey in his final season at Georgia had like 36 receptions. I was like, what are we going to do with that? I'm seeing this small stature wide receiver. I'm like, I don't know what we can do with that. Now, he came into the league and he had some pretty good success that first year. He had a lot of success that first year. Second year, kind of back down to earth here a little bit, right? So we'll see where his career goes. But I like when I can see the proof in the pudding. Mekhi Lemon, the productivity is there. 1,156 yards in 2025 to go along with 11 touchdowns. Now, if you remember my campaign to draft Malik Nabers, or if Jaden Daniels would have fell in that draft, it was Jaden Daniels, right? But I wanted to take Michael Penix over guys like J.J. McCarthy. I wasn't high on Bo Nix. I ain't going to sit up here and lie to you like some people be doing. I wasn't high on Bo Nix, and quite frankly, I kind of dismissed his tape because people were dismissing him, so I dismissed him at that time. I ain't going to lie. But I did want a quarterback during that draft, and if it wasn't a quarterback, it was going to be Malik Nabers, because while looking at Jaden Daniels, I saw Malik Nabers. I'm like, this dude is just a straight-up maniac. And the thing about Malik Nabers, I believe it was 6 100-yard games in his final season at LSU. And I called him a walking 100-yard game. And he came into the NFL, and he showed you that that's exactly what he is. Mekhi Lemon has that same kind of productivity. He had 5 100-yard games in 2025. Now, I want to shout out I want to say my dog is Fantasy Football Ryan on Reddit. And he does this thing where he has this thing called the Doolittle score, where he basically looks at the top prospects in any given draft, and he breaks down their games against top competition. And he broke down a bunch of these wide receivers, and he made a ranking of the wide receivers who are the highest in this ranking. And I want to say he's Fantasy Football Ryan. I want to say. I'll pin it to this stream once I get off. But he was talking about how on Reddit in 2025 that Mekhi Lemon played 9 games against top 80 competition by SRS. In those games played, he accounted for 7 receptions per game. 7 receptions per game for 845 yards out of a total of 2,450 yards of his team. So he's accounting for a third of their offense, basically, in the passing game. He had 9 touchdowns of their 18 passing touchdowns against top 80 competition. That's half of the fucking touchdowns. Warren Sharp talked about this. Warren Sharp said he took 27.6% of the target rate. So he's basically a third of their offense. Do you guys remember why we loved Cam Scatterbo coming out of Arizona State? It's because he was basically a third of the offense over there in the passing game and on the ground as well. Mekhi Lemon had a first down or a touchdown on 14% of his routes, man. It was third best. The downfield production is there, which is something that I don't think is going to translate to the NFL as well. I do think that Mekhi Lemon is going to be a guy that will be a little bit more relegated towards the intermediate level and, the short stuff at the line of scrimmage, the bubble screens, which, I have some concerns about that because he doesn't take the bubble screens like, he's not like a Debo Samuel where he's taking bubble screens 10 yards in his prime every time. He's a guy who's going to take the bubble screen, get 5, get 6, get positive yards. But down the field, he had the most receptions over 20 yards of any wide receiver that is entering the 2026 NFL draft. He's a dude, and this was the number one statistic, because I'm a guy that I like to weigh the tape, but I like the statistics that back the tape. And shout out to Matt Harmon from Reception Perception. He's been putting his foot in draft content. I recommend y'all go over there, go subscribe to him, go check out all of his charts that he has dropped, and maybe even go out there and get a subscription to Reception Perception, because I'm thinking about getting a subscription to them, because the data, the deep data that they present is just amazing. So he compared Mekhi Lemon to Malik Nabers. Malik Nabers, when he came out, Malik Nabers had a 74.4% success rate versus man coverage. And the reason why that is important is it shows that you can win one-on-one. So much so that when Malik Nabers came to the NFL, Brian Dable and Joe Shane felt that, we could just put this guy, we can relegate him to the outside, basically. I think Malik Nabers took about 26% of his snaps in the slot not last year, but the year before that when he was healthy. So you're looking at a guy that 3/4 of the time he's playing outside, but when he was in college, he played 50% of his snaps in the slot, which is why I knew that there was going to be a developmental issue with Wan'Dale Robinson. A lot of people tried to clown me during the time too. Is Wan'Dale Robinson going to get in the way? Well, no, Malik Nabers isn't just relegated to the slot. Malik Nabers can play the outside, which is absolutely true. And we saw that in the pudding when we saw him in 2024. But I think that when you have a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson that you have to position, predominantly in the slot, you're now taking away from the guy in Malik Nabers who took 50% of his snaps in the slot at LSU in his final year in college, which you bring in a guy like Mekhi Lemon can not only play the slot, but Mekhi Lemon can go out there and play the outside as well. This is a guy that, in my opinion, I think could be like a Wes Welker, which Wes Welker was very, locked in at the slot position. And Wes Welker was a big reason why you have the nickel or the slot cornerback in today's game, is because defensive coordinators got sick and tired of seeing their linebackers getting roasted out there. They're like, let's just put another corner out there on the field that can tackle, a la Drew Phillips. So I view Mekhi Lemon as a guy that I literally think this guy can be one of the best wide receivers in the league. But being that if the Giants draft him, he's going to be on a team with Malik Nabers, that's going to be very difficult, because people don't look at a T. Higgins as the best wide receiver in the league simply because Jamar Chase has so much volume, right? So there's only one place the football can go at any given time. But with that 74.4% success rate versus man coverage that Malik Nabers had, Mekhi Lemon had a 75.6 success rate versus man coverage. And he's a guy that is not just, relegated to man-on-man coverage, and that's how he wins. He can beat zone as well. He averaged basically 3 yards per route run against zone coverage, which was the third most yards per route run in this class. He had 45 receptions against zone, 27 first downs against zone, which was the 6th most. This is a guy that has shown you that he can produce. 74 receptions for over 1,100 yards over the past 2 seasons. This guy can produce. And he has shown you that on all levels. Now, when you look at Carnell Tate, I think it's a little bit different. When you look at Carnell Tate, he's a guy that operates off of efficiency. He has not shown that he can get the volume, but that could also be because at Ohio State, it's a very crowded wide receiver room, right? But in 9 games against top 80 competition, shout out to the Reddit homie one more time, Carnell Tate was averaging 4.5 receptions per game, but the yardage is where Carnell Tate wins. 705 yards out of a total of 2,334 yards of the Ohio State's offense. 7 touchdowns out of the 21. So he had a third of the touchdowns, not half of them. But he also had 705 yards out of the 2,334. Carnell Tate is all about efficiency. This dude does not drop the ball. This dude is going to catch the ball down the field. Yeah, the 40-yard dash was not as fast as many people wanted. It was over 4.5. But that's not how Carnell Tate wins. He wins off of sheer route running, manipulation, those type of things. So I think he would be a good pairing as well with Malik Nabers and company. And then you add Isaiah Likely to the equation. Now you're looking at Malik Nabers, Isaiah Likely, Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbu. And we need another guy on the outside. It can't be Darius Slayton for the future. It could be Darius Slayton this year, maybe on some snaps. Darnell Mooney is not going to be the future on the outside. Darnell Mooney has split his time on the outside and in the slot during his career. You know, he's a guy that I think is better suited in the slot, but he has shown you that he can do both. But he's not a guy that's going to go across the middle like a Mekhi Lemon. So I look at Darnell Mooney as a Band-Aid. I look at Mekhi Lemon as, you know, getting the stitches out, sewing that shit up, taking care of business. You look at Carnell Tate, the efficiency was absolutely amazing, which is why I have him above Jordan Tyson. I'm still a little bit just unsure because the dynamic play from Jordan Tyson is so easily attractive, right? It's so intriguing. But then Carnell Tate is just all business. 53% of Carnell Tate's targets went for a first down or a touchdown. That was second best in the class. 17.7% of his receptions went for a touchdown. Now, just 11% of his targets were screens. Now, I don't view this like I viewed the quarterback situation last year when we talked about the quarterbacks that had way too many throws at the line of scrimmage. I view that as Carnell Tate is not, he doesn't have gadget in his game. So as far as being like a focal point of the offense, I don't view that for Carnell Tate in his first couple of years in the league. I view Carnell Tate coming into the league and being a guy that will be the perfect wide receiver 2 from day one. From day one. And you look at Carnell Tate over his career, and take this with a grain of salt because a lot of wide receivers, you know, in that kitchen. So there's a lot of chefs in that kitchen over there at Ohio State. Every year he was there. But he only averaged just 3 receptions per game over his career. So I just worry about the volume stuff, but I'm not worried about Carnell Tate. That's why I had him, you know, as my my wide receiver 1. And for those of y'all that want to take a peek at the wide receiver 1 rank or the wide receiver rankings that I had, if you didn't catch the wide receiver stream, this is what they look like. I had Carnell Tate number 1, Jordan Tyson 2, Mekhi Lemon 3, Casey Concepcion number 4. I'm higher on Chris Brazzell than a lot of people are. I had him at number 5, Denzel Boston at 6. I think at 7 and 8 with Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper Jr., you could flip-flop those. I think that they're very similar players. And although Elijah Surratt took a lot of snaps on the outside, you know, during his tenure at Indiana with Fernando Mendoza and with Curtis Rourke, I think that when Elijah Surratt gets to the league, simply because he's not that great of a separator, I think that he's going to be more relegated to playing the slot position, and he's going to see a lot of snaps in the slot, power slot type of role, you know, bullying some of these slot corners and bullying some of these linebackers as well. But I do think that 7 and 8 are a bit interchangeable. I'm higher on Eric McAllister than anybody you've ever seen. I don't know, man. Go look at the game against TCU on my channel here. I got the All-22 compilation here. When you're done, go look at that game. That dude is an absolute maniac. I do think that there are some things you're going to have to refine, you know, some of the releases. And then I got Ted Hurst at 10. Both of them, 9 and 10, Eric McAllister and Ted Hurst, I think can work on the release. More so Ted Hurst. Ted Hurst really only has one option at the line as far as releases go, as far as his release package. He's going to have to clean that up and find different ways to win, you know, against press coverage if he wants to be an elite outside wide receiver in the NFL. But that's how I got it. If you can't see it kind of small, I got Chris Bell, Skylar Bell, and Malachi Fields as the honorable mentions there. But it's all about Mekhi Lemon for me, man. And the numbers are there. You know, let him settle in. This dude is a dog. He's just a straight-up dog. That's why he won the award for the best wide receiver in the entire nation this past year. I love it all. This guy he's just one of those ones, man. Yards per catch, 14.6. And I just love what he does with the ball in his hands after he catches the ball. He's not necessarily like some yak demigod or nothing like that. For all my dogs out there that play 2K know about the demigods. He's not necessarily that, but I just think he's just such a well-rounded receiver with an incredible skill set that, quite frankly, if Malik Neighbors was not on our team, I'd be drafting this guy as a wide receiver 1 yesterday. That's how confident I feel in Mekhi Lemon's game. You know, few minute things that might need to be cleaned up. But this is the guy that I think would pair well. So getting back to draft strategy here a little bit, right? For me, it's Caleb Downs at 5. It's Mekhi Lemon at 10. I know a lot of people are thinking trade back. Only way I trade back is if it means getting first-round draft capital in 2027. I think we have enough first-round draft capital for 2026 here to be able to, like, easily bring in 2 true contributors right away. So that's how I view it. Now, if they don't go wide receiver, with one of the first 2 picks in the first round, that presents a little bit of an issue for me, which then, okay, let's say they go like Downs and maybe go O-line and go with the guard out of Penn State, who that dude's a fucking mauler. I would not be disappointed if they go with him. Or let's say they go Mansour Delane and Caleb Downs, or Mansour Delane and the guard out of Penn State, or who are some other guys? Maybe even Ruben Bain I would consider. There are a couple of guys that if they're there and the Giants take them, I will have no problem. Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, Caleb Downs, Mekhi Lemon, Mansour Delane. These are guys that if the Giants take them at 5 or 10, I'm good. But I think that if you don't get the wide receiver there, then you're giving yourself, you're putting yourself in a bit of a circumstance here when you get to the second round without a third round pick, because I think that you're going to have to go wide receiver if Casey Concepcion is on the board. Now, if Casey Concepcion is not on the board at pick 37, then you could go like Denzel Boston, which I really wouldn't want to do. I think Denzel Boston is going to be more of a third-round guy, but I do think that he would play that Z role very well. Like Denzel Boston could absolutely be the T. Higgins to Malik Neighbors. He could absolutely be that. So if they did want to do that, I'd be okay with it. But you still got to get a defensive tackle at some point in this draft, and the second-round pick might be the sweet spot for a guy like Lee Hunter. So if that's the case, then you're going to have to address wide receiver in the 4th round. If you go wide receiver in the 4th round, now I got to pull out my book and my notes, but if you go wide receiver in the 4th round, the guy that I would, right off the bat, that I would go for is going to be Eric McAllister. I think that he could come in and play the Z as well, play opposite of Malik Neighbors. But there are a lot of options late in the draft. I'm just looking towards some of my sleeper guys here, but Eric McAllister, I think it would be a premium, like just being a guy that would fall that far in the draft. In my opinion, for day 3, that's a premium type of pick for a day 3 guy. If you could get a guy like Eric McAllister that late, the numbers they're there. And if you look at my the wide receiver video that I posted, the wide receiver live stream, the spreadsheet is posted with a link in the description, so you can get all the advanced stats on all of these players that are in my top 15 as far as the wide receivers go. But Eric McAllister will be a premium guy on day 3 for me there. I'm just trying to think of some of the other guys that might be like premium that far down. If Ted Hurst falls that far, that's premium for me. Chris Bell is a guy that could fall. He did have the ACL injury late in the year at Louisville. He's a guy that could fall. If he's there, I'm running the card up, no problem. Jeremy Bernard's another guy. Antonio Williams. There are so many wide receivers that fall in that middle range category, but they could also go in the 3rd round or in the 2nd round as well. Bryce Lane is another one of my sleepers there out of North Dakota State. That's Bryce Lance, who was Trey Lance's younger brother. Day 3 guys, Barry and Brown's a little bit later. I like Reggie Virgil out of Texas Tech. I like, Kevin Coleman ran that blazing 40-yard dash, so you got to consider him. That dude's an absolute sleeper coming out of Missouri. Let me think about who would be premium there for me at wide receiver if you had to get one in the 4th. Nope. I like the 2 dudes out of Cincinnati too, Jeff Caldwell, and then Cyrus Allen is the other one. I like him as well, but I think those guys are maybe round 5 guys. They're definitely day 3, maybe round 5, maybe even later than that. Yeah, that's Brennan Thompson's another sleeper. I'm just going to tell you guys all my sleepers to keep an eye out for. I think Donovan McCulley from Michigan is a sleeper as well. I saw him in person against Maryland. The dude was balling out. Big body, Z-type, 6'5", 215, lean build. Needs some work, though. Definitely needs some work, but I do think he's a sleeper. Xavion Thomas is another sleeper out of LSU. Let me see. I'm just going through all the sleepers I had. Oh, Deshaun Stribling out of Ole Miss is another one. The 4th round, I think he's a bit premium pick. Didn't have the numbers to back up, really the true skill set that he has there, but I think he's going to be a dog. And that's really about it as far as sleepers go. I mean, there's a ton of other dudes you could go after. I mean, C.J. Daniels didn't get a lot of love this draft period. Definitely a contributor at Miami for sure. I liked Romello Brinson out of SMU a little bit. Lewis Bond out of BC was pretty good. Barry Brown out of LSU, to me, is the guy that if you wanted a gadget like a Mekhi Lemon, and I don't think Mekhi Lemon's a gadget, but I'm talking about a guy that can do gadget type shit. Barry Brown out of LSU is that guy. Zachariah Branch just got pulled over the other day, got some legal shit going on. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Or it was actually like out in the public or something like that. He was filming somebody. I thought it was pretty stupid. But Zachariah Branch is probably the best option outside of Casey Concepcion and Mekhi Lemon if you're looking for a guy that does gadget like shit. But the problem is that Zachariah Branch doesn't have the productivity as the two other guys. So for me, it's Casey Concepcion at the top of the second. If it's not Casey Concepcion, go address defensive tackle or defensive line. Maybe there's somebody lingering there that fell to the second round you could draft. I would prefer to get the wide receiver early on in this draft. Go and get Mekhi Lemon at pick 10. Go and get Jordan Tyson at pick 10 if Mekhi Lemon is gone. Go and get Carnell Tate if both of them are gone. Make sure you get Caleb Downs. Don't fuck around and try to wait towards pick 10. I'm worried about Washington. I think Washington at pick 7, if Caleb Downs is on the board, I think they're going to be that team that will threaten us and possibly go out there and take Caleb Downs. You got teams like the Saints. You got teams like the Kansas City Chiefs. You got teams like the Dallas Cowboys that want to move up as well, who could also use some help in their secondary. So I'm not fucking around with the Caleb Downs stuff. I'm taking Caleb Downs at 5. I'm taking Mekhi Lemon at 10. So that's my draft approach for the first couple of rounds. As we get later on into day 2 into day 3, outside of wide receiver, I just hope the Giants go BPA, man. Just get some guys that are dogs, bring them in, get them in the developmental phase, and the rest should be history. And hopefully Harbaugh is the guy to do it. We'll see. I want to see y'all thoughts in the chat. So spam me your draft thoughts in the chat so I don't got to scroll back up here. If you already said something about it, say it again, just so I can see how you guys feel about the draft. How y'all feel about Sonny Styles after I showed you a little bit of tape? How you feel about, maybe even just not going wide receiver all in all in the first 2 rounds, in total. Let me know what y'all are thinking. I'm pulling up the chat right now, and then we'll get y'all up out of here. 2 hours and 15 minutes, we'll say. Timmy Foosball just pulled up, says, oh, shit, he's back. Don't come sneaking up on us like that. Yeah, I mean, y'all knew I was going to be here at least one time before the draft hit. But, yeah, man, it's been a busy offseason for sure that I didn't plan on, to be honest. But, shit happens. Novice says, Sonny Styles, enjoy Dallas or Washington. I'm with you on that too, man. I hope that's the case. Let's see. Jaji05 says, if somehow Chris Bell falls to the 4th, they should definitely pull the trigger on that. Yeah, and I don't think he'll fall to the 4th. I think it'll be, maybe he will, man. Maybe he will. I don't know. I really don't know. Because the thing is, I saw somebody talking about how his build and his game is very similar to Xavier Legette. And y'all know I loved Xavier Legette. I'm never somebody who will shy away from a draft prospect that didn't go my way. Xavier Legette has not panned out the way that we have wanted him to pan out. People that are Legette supporters. That's a guy that was a bit of a bust for me. The biggest wide receiver bust I had was Javon Baker. I thought Javon Baker was just a solidified day 3 guy that would come in and could be a contributor early on. Man, the Patriots parted ways with that dude after 1 season. I'll never forget that drop bomb that he had in the preseason from Drake May, and we're just looking at this shit oh, this is about to be a connection, and he drops the ball, and you just never saw him again. So that's one of my draft flops. But it also makes me, think about the Patriots and what they do to wide receivers, because Jalen Polk, who was a solid wide receiver at Washington with Rome Odunze and Michael Penix Jr., somehow comes in the league and he can't find a role. I don't get it. Great route runner, does a lot of things well, just can't find a role within that Patriots offense. So it's tough. But when looking at Chris Bell, I just don't know if people are going to be scared of the injury. You got to think about it like this, right? Curtis Rourke, and I know it's a different position, it's a quarterback, right? But Curtis Rourke went out there, put up 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a whole fucking gang of yards, and teams did not draft this guy until the 7th round, I believe it was, 6th or 7th round. The San Francisco 49ers drafted him because of an ACL. And he played on the ACL, got the operation done after the season, showed you that he is tough as nails, and teams still waited until the 7th round. So this is what I'll say about Chris Bell. It won't shock me if he falls to the 4th. It won't shock me. It absolutely won't shock me. Jark12 says, Barian Brown in the 6th, that's a good return man, and he can do more. Absolutely. And look, I'm glad you brought this up, because those are reasons why I love Casey Concepcion and Mekhi Lemon. Both of them have the ability to literally check that box at punt returner all damn day long, especially Casey Concepcion. Just go look at the game against LSU, I believe it was, and you'll see this dude is fucking dynamite, literally a dynamite stick in the return game. Mekhi Lemon is a guy who's very more just more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, he's just more sure. Not even more. That's not the right word. He's a sure type of punt returner. Like, you're going to get the yards. You ain't got to worry about the fumbles, but you're not going to get the guys taking them shits to the house like a Barry Brown or like a KC Concepcion. KC Concepcion will take shit to the house for damn sure. But I'm glad you brought up the whole return situation, because that's why I like Mekhi Lemon and KC Concepcion so much, because their value that they bring to a team is not just where they're going to line up on the offensive side of the ball. Let's see. Jart says take Tate at 5, him over Downs. You know, if they take him, I don't know, man. It's tough, man. I'm not mad at that, Jart, you know, but it's tough because you take Tate at 5, you're fucking around trying to miss Caleb Downs at 10, but that could mean that Mansour Delane is still there. So maybe you leave with Tate and Delane. Not too bad. Novice of Things says, Monroe Freeling, I see you. That would be another great addition as well. Listen, trenches, I'm welcoming any addition to the trenches. I'm just, weary about the first 2 picks. I just think, Mekhi Lemon and Caleb Downs is hard to stay away from, for sure. Stacy's in the building. What's going on, Stacy? Stacy said offensive weapons for Dart at 5 and 10, defense the remainder of the draft. So you want to go 2 weapons. You want to go weapon at 5 and 10. So you're probably thinking Jeremiah Love at 5, who we haven't talked about a lot today, which I wouldn't be mad at. Jeremiah Love is a fucking dog. That's another dog mentality type of player. And then going receiver at 10. I like it, Stacy. I ain't mad at it. It's probably not my first option, but I like it. As long as you'd be hoping for some players to fall on day 2 and day 3, but I like it. Cuts 5973 said, what do you think of the Giants going 2 offensive weapons in the first, Love and Tyson? So yeah, kind of just talked about that. I like that. You and Stacy kind of thinking the exact same way, and I'm good with that. The Giants have neglected offense. Outside of like Malik Neighbors, they've neglected offense, man, in the first round for a while here. So like I'm cool with that. Bring in the weapons. There's more than one way. I don't even want to say that because I'm a cat owner. But there's just more than one way to go about this. Y'all know what it is. Novice said, if you want a weapon, draft Love. Yeah, the reasoning why I'm just a little weary about the Love part, but there's things that support not being weary, is that he's a running back, right? And the running back lifespan is a lot shorter than the wide receiver lifespan. But the thing that Jeremiah Love got going for him is, he was 20 years old like a few weeks ago. He just turned 21. So he's super young, man. He's super young. Mekhi Lemon is 21 too as well, I believe. Let me double check, make sure Mekhi is 21. I know I had that in these notes at the top. I didn't. I think Mekhi is 21. Pretty sure Mekhi is 21. So I like the youthful factor of it as well. But I don't know, man. Dual threat quarterback, but damn, you pair it's like Scadaboo coming back off the injury. Like in hindsight, I might feel differently about this if Scadaboo doesn't return from the injury the same way. So definitely something to think about. The Illa says, Awthentik, I like Downs, but I just keep thinking about what Xavier Watts did for the Falcons last year, LOL, and he was picked 96 of the 3rd round. I know, bro. I know. Last year's draft was a lot better, though, the Illa. It was just the trenches in last year's draft were so damn good. I wish I didn't erase my board. I did erase it, but I took a picture of it. But there was just so many players in that draft last year, man. Like, trench-wise, too, man. So, I don't know. It's tough. I'm just looking at bringing in a guy that's a contributor for sure. Jart12 said, also Jake Rodriguez for 37 is a dream pick for me. I'm super excited to see what combo we get out of 5 and 10. Yeah, man. I'm starting to like this too, because now that we got that extra pick at 10, if you can leave with 2, let's call them cornerstones with the first 2 picks, and I know that with what happened in 2022, that's tough to even think about. But if you could leave with your safety, in my case, your safety in Caleb Downs, and your wide receiver 2 in Mekhi Lemon, and then you go and get Jacob Rodriguez at 37, yeah, we cooking. We cooking now. Love it. That's why I want those picks out of the way in the first 2 picks with pick 5, pick 10. It'll allow you to have some flexibility when we get to the second round at pick 37. I love that right there from Jart. Timmy Foosball said, Sonny Styles at 5, Downs at 10. I want an elite defense again. I want to break teams' will. I want us to be feared again. It's been way too long. Now, from my perspective, Timmy, this sounds like 2 things. It sounds like, 1, you missed the compilation and the cut up that we showed at the beginning of the stream that you got here a little bit late. And two, I don't know if you've dug into Sonny Styles' tape yet, because you say you want to break teams' will. Do you think Sonny Styles is a guy that breaks teams' will from what you've seen? I'll try to keep an eye out for what you're talking here in the chat, but from what I've seen, I don't see a player that breaks nobody's will. I didn't see that at all. C-Rob said Downs at 5, Delane at 10. Or the guard out of Penn State, I think is Ione. I can't enunciate his last name. Take a wide receiver or a D tackle in the second. Cool. I'm not mad at it. Especially if you could get it, like if this scenario panned out and you got Casey Concepcion at the top of the second, love it. Love it. That would be great. Bookend Tackle said Downs or Styles at 5, wide receiver O-line at 10. Yeah. I fucks with it. Styles at 5 don't make no sense to me. Like none. And look, this is one that I'm willing to, when his career pans out, I'll monitor it. Y'all know how I do. I'm not gonna shy away from it. If Sonny Styles turns into fucking Ray Lewis, I'll be the first one up here. Like, yo, I completely fucked up his evaluation, and I couldn't see the projection that a lot of people saw in him. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I see regular linebacker. I don't even see regular linebacker. I see an edge rusher, to be honest. Ayo says the Giants will go Styles at 5 and Tyson at 10. Okay. Novice says my prediction, and I appreciate the super chat, my dog. You know what it is. Definitely appreciate that, bro. He says my prediction, the Giants end up with 3 first-round picks, trading up from 37 to the 20s and taking McDonald. Then we take Friday off. Ooh, I love that. Nobody talking about that. Nobody is talking about that, and I love that right there, because the cream of the crop is at the top of this draft. So get up to the top of this draft. If you can use any of your other picks in the other rounds to move up, then do that. Yeah, so it would take 37 and something else to get into the 20s. Maybe a player, maybe another pick. But I'm not too mad at that. I like that. And again, man, appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here. See where we at on time. We'll go to 2 hours and 30 minutes at least, but I want to get to as many of these as we can. J-Dub said Downs and Tyson would be my preference for 5 and 10 in whatever order. Yes, I would love this right here. I would love this. Just as much as I would love bringing in Mekhi Lemon. This gives us that same kind of a hope, but it's just the injury scares with Tyson, but I would still love this. This would be awesome. Somebody said Love and O-line. Who was that? Oh, yeah, that was No Mets, No Nets, No Jets that said Love and O-line. I'm okay with that, but I don't know. Like, it'd be one or the other for me. Like, get Love, don't get the O-line. Get the O-line, don't get Love. It'd be one of those for me, to be honest. Let's see. Ayo said the Giants need to get a lineman somewhere in the draft. If it presents itself, I'm cool with it. But I do think that they could leave this draft without addressing, offensive line, because it's got to be for the interior. You're not going to draft. I doubt they draft a right tackle. You still got Marcus Bowe, who's still developing. For me, it's if you get the right interior offensive lineman to fall to you in the second round. Right now, being that they don't have the third pick, that would be the sweet spot for me. But I'm not pressing to draft interior offensive lineman and say round 4, round 5, round 6. Just get the best players. We can build this team throughout the next couple of years. Let me see. Timmy Foosball said, guy I like for the later is Bryce Lance. If we don't go for a wide receiver until round 4, just looks like a beast on the tape. Also, Ted Hurst reminds me so much of Nico Collins. Nico got better releases. Ted's got, I'd say, a little bit more of that vertical. Maybe not even a little more of that vertical, because Nico can do all of that too. I like the build. The build comp is pretty good there for Nico to Ted Hurst. I like Ted, but Ted's his release package is limited. I think that's where he's gonna have to work on his game. And the confidence, I think, with Ted it's not quite there, being that he played at Georgia Southern. I went and looked at some of his interviews, and he just doesn't seem all that confident in the interviews. And I noticed when it's 2 different ways to approach the draft, right? Like, what's my dog from the quarterback out of Arkansas? Taylor Green. When Gruden asked him, you gonna switch to wide receiver? He was like, fuck no. He's like, I'm a quarterback. I like that kind of confidence. But also I kind of like players that are, willing to be versatile as well. But then when they asked Ted Hurst, what is your role going to be in the NFL? And he was like, I'm willing to come in and play special teams. It was a bit of a red flag for me. Like, this is a guy that knows he needs to develop some aspects of his game. I still got him at wide receiver 10 just off the strength of the potential, because I do think that, he physically is a straight up fucking beast, man. He's a strider. He has a great catch radius. He could be one of those ones for sure. Bryce Lance kind of is like a poor man's Jordan Tyson to me. They share very similar aspects to their game. But Bryce Lance, I like him better when he gets the ball in his hands, to be honest. Holmes with Jay says, I'm tempted to skip defense in round 1. I am too. I ain't going to lie. I'm very tempted. But Caleb Downs, I just think that dude, like, man, I used to play ball. I came up with one of my good homies, and he was actually, when I got to high school, he rivaled me at the quarterback position, my homie Ajibade. And when we got to high school as freshmen, he wasn't there my freshman year. I was battling with another quarterback my freshman year. And then I got a little bit of hype my sophomore year. Me and him were battling. But my homeboy Ajibade was just like an all-around football player with the dog in him. I wasn't a football player with the dog in me. I'm going to keep it funky with you. Like, I get near that sideline, y'all ain't hitting me. Fuck that shit. I wasn't one of them ones, okay? But my dog was one of them ones. I seen this dude put 2 people in the ambulance in one game, and he was on offense, and he put both of them in the ambulance. The ambulance was leaving and had to come back and get the other kid. He was literally just putting his helmet in people's chests. But this dude had that dog. He had that straight up dog in him, right? And I just think if we're going to skip defense, you got to make sure that you got players that are, that have that type of mentality, So I think first round picks are designated for that. And I don't care if it's on defense or if it's on offense. The Giants just need those punch you in the mouth kind of players. And we don't have enough of those players. So I'm with you. I am tempted to skip defense in round 1 a little bit as well. But, I'm looking for players that just like put fear. These players know, like, when they go across the middle, like Ryan Clark was one of them guys, right? He wasn't the fastest, biggest, tallest, strong, none of that shit. But Ryan Clark was one of them dudes where if you went across the middle and you weren't thinking he was there, you was going to get your whole shit peeled back. I'm looking for those kind of players for sure. The Illa says, I'm a big fan of Love, but one thing I will say, there's going to be a lot of running backs in the 2027 draft along with wide receivers. They're top of the crop for wide receivers for sure. I know them. I haven't gotten into that class yet. The running back class this year is absolutely garbage, man. I like Jonah Coleman. I like, obviously, Jeremiah Love. I like the kid Mike Washington. But outside of that, man, like, where's the speedster? Where's the fucking, like, where's like the RJ Harvey of this draft? Where's the Brashard Smith? I just don't see those type of backs in this draft, and I'm staying away. I like Jonah Coleman, though. He's a good back. But I'll have to dig into the wide receiver class. I usually do it at the end of the year. I have to dig into the 2027 class, but we'll see. Excuse me. Holmes with Jay said draft Love and Lemon. I'm cool with it. You wanna. All right. All right, that's what's up. I'll keep that in mind. I like the trenches is where I just didn't do a lot of digging this year, especially offensive line. And y'all know I always refer y'all to Bobby for that. Like, Bobby know his stuff when it comes to offensive line. Let's see. Holmes with Jay's talking about the Maui Goa injury. They were talking about his back. I heard some people saying there's some smoke and whatnot. Maui Goa is a pretty versatile lineman, though. But, yeah, the injury, I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. They were talking about his back, but that's never a good thing, to be honest. That's never a good thing. AO says, I want to trade down from 10 and get Casey in the second round. Casey in the second round would be great. Casey Concepcion in the second round might be the best value in the entire draft. Like, of any player that might possibly fall there, it's Casey Concepcion. I think that Omar Cooper is in that same lane, but Omar Cooper, to me, should be drafted in the second round. There's a lot of first-round hype around him, and he's a great player, super strong. The yak is incredible. I think he can do a lot of things, but I don't know. I'd prefer a KC Concepcion over Omar Cooper Jr. for sure. No, Mets is talking about the 6-rounders. Skate Habitat says, I'd take Downs or Bain at 5. Delane is somehow there at 10. I'd take him. I like this too. I really like this too. This would improve your defense in a major way for the future. I love that. D. Zook said, day 3, Pat Coogan to back up JMS. I want it. Yeah, and JMS is not like, his future is not solidified here. I mean, he had a decent bounce back year last year, a decent year. So we'll see. The Illa's saying, yeah, it's bad. He's talking about the running backs. I know it. Dante says next year's class is going to be worse, in my opinion. Talking about wide receiver or running back. Wide receiver this year didn't have those top dogs, right? Didn't have a lot of the top dogs, but it had a lot of depth. You know, like there's like 15, 20 wide receivers that I would consider drafting throughout the draft for sure. Now, I've said, let's be honest, there are tons of wide receivers in every draft. That is true. And then, you know, all these guys that have like the day 2 grade, there are so many of them that just flame out, you know, and that's why I brought up Javon Baker and guys like Xavier Legette as well, because they had great college productivity. These guys were supposed to have a role in the NFL, and it's just not panning out. Another one, Troy Franklin. I was super high on Troy Franklin. I love Troy Franklin coming out. And Troy is he's starting to trend in the right direction now, but, you know, it was a tough start for him for sure. Holmes with Jay said, I'm not a fan holding out for next year's draft because players take a step back, production lacks, injuries happen, things change, deal with the present. Yeah, you got to deal with the present, but I'm always looking at the future. Always looking at the future. You got to, like, Whit Weeks in next year's draft is going to be linebacker 1, most likely. Yeah, an injury could happen. An injury happened to him this year. You know, you never know. But it's good to be ahead of the curve, man, you know, and while also staying grounded in real time, that's important as well, too. Timmy Foosball says, I get what you're saying, and we're at the 2:30 mark here, y'all. He said, I get what you're saying about Ted Hurst, but you got to remember DJ Moore was a bit of a puss when he came in the league. I don't remember that, dog. DJ Moore being a puss? You know that's Maryland alum, brother. DJ Moore was a fucking dog, man. I almost called you something crazy just now. How much, Timmy, man, I don't know how much football you watching over there, man. DM me later, bro. Let me see. D Zook said Le'Veon Moss in my later is my later round running back. That's what's up. Okay. I'm avoiding later round running backs this year. We've done that already 3 years in a row. We did it with Eric Gray. We did it with Tyrone Tracy. And I guess Cam Scadden was not a later round guy, but mid round guy. So if we're going to get the running back, go get Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love or nothing. Cut says, appreciate you doing the live stream, bro. Great way to start off a Monday. I'm the one that tweeted at you. Oh, man, thank you, bro. Yeah, you saw I was kind of fucking with you with the emojis and whatnot. I did plan on going live, but yeah, I just appreciate people that check in, man. You know, like I got people that, like, I'm not somebody that's really good at checking in either. Don't get me wrong. But I'm very grateful, and I show mad gratitude for people that just be like, man, you good? When's the next stream? That kind of shit, like, yeah, that shit goes a long way, man. So shout out to Cuts, man. He hit me up on Twitter, was like, yo, when's the next stream, man? I'm looking forward to it. And appreciate you being here and keeping your eyes peeled for the stream too, man. That's what's up. Dante said it's running backs that'll be worse. Wide receiver will be really top heavy, not as much depth as this past year. That's what I thought he was saying too. Ayo said getting a corner in the 3rd round would be good value. Giants should definitely consider that if there are any. Yeah, and if they have a 3rd round pick, totally. There are some cornerbacks that are going to fall to the 2nd, 3rd round for sure that will be there. I like the cornerback class. I thought there were some good cornerbacks this year for sure. Pietro said, Awthentik, you the man. Hope you're doing well, man. Yeah, stuff's well, man. You know, just busy, and just life. Y'all know how life go, man. Like, you know, at times in life, you got to have those moments where you got to look in the mirror and buckle the fuck down. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't rely on your past work to get you through what's going to happen in the future. And, yeah, I think that's kind of where I was falling victim to it, kind of chilling a little bit. And, yeah, a lot of work on the plate now, and it's just like catching up, bro. Catching up, man. But it's, it's all shit that I love, all shit that I enjoy doing, just like podcasting here. Pietro said, where do you stand on trading Kayvon? Talked about it earlier. I don't want to trade Kayvon. The only way I trade Kayvon is if they plan on drafting Sonny Styles. That's how I view it. Like, because I don't view Sonny Styles as a pure middle linebacker that's going to take Tremaine Edmonds' place in the long haul. So I look at it more like he's probably going to be like edge, tweener, versatile type of player. So if you trade Kayvon, make sure you're going to bring in Sonny Styles or, Ruben Bain. Or if Arvell Reese is there, any edge rusher you prefer. Nick P said Boston in the 2nd would be electric. I was thinking like this early in my wide receiver, evaluation process. I just don't think we're going to get Boston. I think Boston, for me and the Giants, I think it'd be better off, later. And I just think the value at that pick, Boston has separation concerns. I like him, though, as a receiver. I mean, that dude wins the 50-50. Definitely has, like, some of that T. Higgins skill set. I think he could be a very successful Z in this league. I don't think he'll be a wide receiver one really, but I saw him firsthand against Maryland this year, and he had a touchdown where he just straight up, just bully boyed our team. He's one of those guys. I like him. I just don't know if at the top of the second is where I would spend the pick on him. But if they end up with him, I'm not going to have any complaints. Dante said that DJ Moore was a dog. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck Timmy was talking about with that one. Timmy might be talking about a different player for real because, dating back to when DJ Moore was like early years, even in Carolina, dog, bro, just always had dog. Like he's one of the few wide receivers that had a stint in his career where he was an X, but he didn't operate like the traditional X's that we see in this league. Like when I think about an X getting a bubble screen, I think about DJ Moore, That's how I view that one. Holmes with Jay said, I think this draft is going to have a lot of sleepers, dudes who no one thought would cook in the league and turn out to be monsters. Watch. That's possible. That's possible. I don't 100% agree with that. But I do think there'll be a few of them here and there. Like I said, like the wide receiver position was where I was like in the fucking trenches heavy. And I think there are a lot of guys that could shock people, like a Eric McAllister, like a Malachi Fields, like a Jeff Caldwell, like a Cyrus Allen. I think these guys could really shock and surprise people, but would it surprise me if they don't pan out? Not so much, Every year there's always wide receivers that can ball. There's much more to it in the NFL for sure. Let me see. BX Banger said, don't be surprised if we trade down that 10th pick and accumulate more day 2 picks. That's been Harbaugh's MO. Harbaugh has only had one top 10 pick his entire career, and he drafted an offensive lineman. So I don't know if that's been his MO. A lot of people have been saying like, his MO is to draft a safety as well too, but that's not necessarily the case either. As of late, if you look at the Baltimore Ravens drafts, which John Harbaugh is not necessarily in charge for, that's Newsom. But I'm sure he has a hand in it for sure. But if you look at their drafts, they were going wide receiver heavy. Like they love their wide receivers. And when you look at their first round picks, they have drafted DBs more than anything else. They've drafted 6 defensive backs. They've drafted 5 pass catchers. And I think they've drafted 4 wide receivers during the whole time that Harbaugh was there with the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm kind of puzzled. I think Stanley was the only pick that they got in the top 10. It was the only top 10 pick that the Baltimore Ravens ever had. So, that's why it's been so difficult for me to try to project what the Giants will do, because I've never seen John Harbaugh, in the situation where he's had a top 10 pick for real. Like he has a top 5 pick this year and pick 10. So this is just a little bit different. Being a team that is always in the playoffs and you trading out of the pick 20s and stuff like that is a lot different than trading out of a top 10 pick, because when you trade out of that top 10 pick, the team that drafts where you draft, if they can go out there and get a Micah Parsons like we saw happen to us in 2021, it'll be forever stained on your resume. And I don't want that to happen to John Harbaugh. Would it surprise me if they trade down? Not at all. Nothing right now is going to surprise me in this draft on Thursday. It could be Sonny Styles. Obviously, a fucking quarterback would surprise me. They're not going to draft a quarterback. But outside of that, man, edge rusher won't surprise me. Linebacker won't surprise me. Safety won't surprise me. Cornerback won't surprise me. Running back won't surprise me, which is crazy. We just drafted Cam Scatterbull a year ago. So, yeah, I definitely won't be surprised, BX. All options are on the table here for the Giants come Thursday for sure. Holmes with Jay said, I wanted your thoughts on the Cole album. Never heard back. Man, I listened to the Cole album one time, and I don't think I'm going back to it. It's I thought it was just good. I thought it was just a good album. I thought he was a little bit too focused on trying to make a point while rapping. And, I want Cole on beats that just make you stand the fuck up. Kind of like Sonny Styles tape, I want tape that makes me just stand up and be like, yo. I turn on some other albums and the beats are just so incredible. And when I say that, I mean like off the, like y'all know like when something is just like undeniable off the feel. Like I thought Kanye and Just Blaze, when they paired up with Jay-Z back on that run for Blueprint, like that was just like undeniable feeling, bro. Like when you hear like Rock Boys in the Building Tonight, when you hear like PSA, when you hear like, let me think. I could take it to other producers too, man. Like there's just certain beats that make you just, like when you heard Dead Presidents on Reasonable Doubt, or like when there's just certain beats, bro, you just, when you hear Beanie Siegel, The Truth, you're like, God damn, that beat crazy. Cole didn't really have any of those, I thought conceptually it was dope though. I did think it was dope conceptually. Novice says the Giants are going to have to get by at certain positions this year. That is not uncommon though. Every team has weak spots, especially teams that are rebuilding. Ayo said Boston at 3 for me. Maybe he means 37. I'm not sure what he means there. Maybe he means third round. We got to get a third round pick if he means third round, but I like Boston. He's a good player. Nomet said J. Cole equals Chipotle music is good for what it is, but it ain't that food you see. But that's the thing is like he has the capability to do that. Like we saw it on Forest Hill Drive where it was like undeniable album, great album. I thought KOD was a really good album too, but it lacked the beats. Like when it comes to like, I don't think J. Cole is I can't say J. Cole is Chipotle music. I couldn't say that. He says the N-word too much to be Chipotle music, but I think he's just a lyrical rapper that the beats come secondary. We got to get back to the feel, man. We got to get these. Like, I love when I hear like a 2 Chainz with an Alchemist on some Larry June shit because I know the beats are going to be fire. But like J. Cole needs to get in that realm, I think. I wouldn't call it like Drake makes more like Chipotle music than Cole, but Cole makes like hip hop music, I think, that is for people that are willing to accept boring beats, boring hip hop, boring backpack. Like I'm a underground hip hop head. I've been one. I loved the Raucous Records movement. That was my thing, right? But I also like I'm knowledgeable enough to know that back in the day when I was listening to Raucous Records, like during the Sound Bombing 2 era, that a lot of that shit was garbage, right? Like not saying on Sound Bombing 2, I'm just saying like artists from back then, I was into like 7L and Esoteric and like just all this underground shit. There were bad songs back then that I tolerated with. And I think J. Cole listeners are kind of in that realm of like, we're so anti-mainstream, like just give us good rapping, and they focus on the rapping more, but the beats just don't have the feel. And the hooks, I think, are just kind of, Oh, Timmy said, I said he spoke like a, I don't even know what that means, man. I don't know what that means, bro. I don't know what that means, man. John says, Matt Nagy offense, I can see Love being the pick. Could be, especially with Greg Roman here in the building now. It absolutely could be. Dilla says it's like Nas with J. Cole. It is similar, but the problem is that Nas, when he first came out, they made sure all the beats were the best beats you had ever heard. Like Illmatic, they combined him with all the best producers in the game, bro. You know, that was like, we're going to put all the best around him, from Q-Tip to Large Pro to everybody that they got, Primo, all them. They put everyone around him at the time that was the best hip-hop producers for a rapper. And then if you look at the second album, when it got to It Was Written, they tried to put Nas around the best commercial producers. That's why Trackmasters did a bunch of the stuff on It Was Written. And It Was Written is a commercial album, in my opinion. They put him around. They tried to gloss up the hip-hop sound and sell it more. That's why you got Lauryn Hill, and that's why you got Trackmasters. That's why you got Lauryn Hill on the single, and that's why you got Trackmasters throughout the entirety of the album. And don't forget, Trackmasters was doing all that shit for LL Cool J back then, doing all the R&B thug shit. And that's how they tried to pair him at Columbia. And I thought it was not the greatest idea, but the results were good because It Was Written was good. And then this is a good take by the Illa. I really think it's a good one. Like Nas, the beats were kind of, at times could be boring, but we're focusing on lyricism. Nomet says, I never understood the Nas with bad beats narrative. He had some good beats. He did, yeah. Like Illmatic had, like I just described, had great beats. It Was Written was like half and half. By the time you got to I Am, the beats weren't that good. Like one of my favorite beats on I Am was, I can't remember the name of the song, but I remember how the verse go. I can't remember how the verse, it was like all about like this girl, and he told a story. He was like, Carolyn from Maryland, she lady heroin, she elegant, thug heroin, M-class caravan, keys, loving something, she killers in a condo. That joint, that to me, that was the best beat on I Am, outside of like all the commercial records, because the message was really the best beat on that album. The message was, and how they started the If I Ruled the World. Well, actually, It Was Written. I'm going back to now, but those two on that album, and then the one I'm talking, I can't believe I can't remember that name from the record on I Am though. Yeah, you already know. You know ball right here. Y'all know ball. I'm not gonna harp on the hip hop conversation because I know people doing draft shit. They want to come here and see draft. He said what I think about the Beatles beat. It was good. It was had human timing, used real instruments, used some of the best black musicians from that era. I have the Beatles' entire collection over there. Every fucking record. All of them. Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of the Beatles, but I got all their records. I know what they mean to American music. Dilla said, Nas my favorite rapper of all time. God's Son had good beats. Yeah. Made You Look. Woo, yeah. I'm talking that good shit. All right. I'm down at the bottom, so I'm doing a little hip hop here, and then we get the fuck out of here. Let's see. Novice said, if it's not 90s gangster rap, it's just noise. Yo, so when I was coming up, my brother was big into gangster rap. And I don't know if y'all been seeing a lot of these conversations going on around Twitter about like where stuff started and people having debates about, did this start in DC? You know, did DC start New Balance? Did they start Timberlands? Did they start all that and all that? And a lot of people don't understand that like DC is a melting pot, man. Like we love a lot of shit, very well-rounded. Like at the same time, Nas is popping early in the 90s. You could say wow and a little bit post gangster rap. My brother is heavy, like Ice Cube is his favorite rapper. He's still listening to like Cool G rap though. He's a big NWA fan coming out of that stuff. He still loves all that stuff up top with Tupac, just like all the slash East Coast stuff, like that sounded like the East Coast. Because Ice Cube was doing some East Coast stuff too with the Bomb. Was that what the Bomb Squad, I think, America's Most Wanted was? But that sound, my brother liked that. But he also loved like Master P and the whole NOLA movement and all that stuff. He loved that stuff. And when Gucci Mane came out, he loved that stuff. DC is a melting pot. Then when I came up, my brother didn't listen to all this stuff, but I was like, I like the lyrics, bro. I'm on the underground shit. And when Kweli and Most came out, that was a rap for me. I was like, oh, I love underground hip hop, and that's what sold it for me, straight up. So I love my gangster rap, bro. But it's up top for me. I'm New York hip hop till they dip my casket, yo. But I respect gangster rap. Like The Chronic is one of my favorite albums. Tupac is the greatest artist ever in hip hop. I don't care what nobody say. You could say Jay, Kendrick, all that. Nobody did it like Pac. Go listen to All Eyes on Me. Disc 1, you will see. That dude was different. He was on some whole other shit. Shout out my dog B-Rog, paying us to let us know with the $10 super chat. He said, I'm too white for the chat. He said, ha. I was singing Regulators yesterday. Hey, well, a little something, bro. Warren G's one of the unsung goats for sure. So a little something. Rest in peace to Nate Dogg, man. That's one of the greatest ever. People were talking about the best voices in hip hop the other day, and nobody said Nate Dogg. I'm like, y'all forgetting about the dude that carried the tune, on some Barry White baritone vibes, bro. Nobody did it like that. The Illa said it's a small world, Awthentik. I'm trying to think what the Illa said before that to make him say that. Oh, Nas' favorite rapper of all time. Underlying Love was a nasty beat. Well, I can't remember Underlying Love. I got to check that out when I get off. Holmes with Jay said, I love this corner on the internet. Hey, I appreciate that, man. We just try to, we just being us, bro. We just being us, man. Try to do it professionally and bring value. Timmy Foosball said, I'm never smoking before coming to the stream again. You guys just ain't getting it. Nah, man. Keep, have your 420 shit ready. It's 420 today, bro. Have your shit ready, bro. You know what it is. Oh, thank you, yo. Dilla, I'm an idiot, yo. I'm an idiot, Dilla. I'm an idiot. Yes, the song title was called Small World. Yes, bro, that beat was fucking crazy. And Nas, that song by Nas lyrically is one of my favorite from him. And then Rewind off, like Stillmatic to me is my favorite Nas album. It only got like one or two misses on that whole entire album, and they're down towards the end of the album, the Braveheart Party, and there might be one more. Like This Is My Country was kind of sketchy, but it was still pretty good. Stillmatic's my favorite album. So Rewind and Small World, man, great albums. Great album. I'm a fucking idiot that I didn't catch that when Dilla first said it. Yeah, Waterflies in the building. What's going on, man? Hope all is well. Yeah, my girl got me this joint beginning of last year, maybe the year before that, I think. Something like that. This is funny as hell to me now. Waterfly, hope all is well, man. Haven't talked to you in a while. Yeah, Big L, greatness. Y'all know the greats, man, because y'all represent New York Giants football. Y'all know what it is. Timmy Foosball said, but what you think about that Beatles beat, Hey Jude? That shit fire, bro. That shit fire. And, like, what's the other joint? Kweli sampled it. I think it might be called All the Lonely People, but Kweli sampled that joint. I thought that joint was fire, too. This is the thing about the Beatles. Y'all want me to keep it real about the Beatles before we get up out of here. They come from the era of the 60s entering, right? And 50s and 60s, the consoles weren't quite yet where they are today. So when you listen to a lot of Beatles recordings, they're just not good, in my opinion. They're good for the time, but they don't stand the test of time. It's just very restricted frequency response on a lot of the Beatles records. Like humans hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So when we mix records, a lot of the digital interfaces now that convert analog to digital, to not get too nerdy, they convert it to our hearing. They convert 20 as the lowest bass that we can hear, boom, down there, right? To 20,000 being the highest frequency we can hear, which is up there in like almost the dog whistle range, right? The Beatles records sound like they're cut off at like 5,000 kilohertz and like 200 hertz. Like it's just a restricted, very restricted frequency response in their records. So the records that I do love of theirs are the ones that, you know, later on that were recorded a little bit better. Because I'm a stickler. Like if the quality is not right outside of go-go music, you can record it terrible. I don't care. But when it comes to other genres, you can't record those terribly. So definitely, you know, something that just makes me not a huge fan of the Beatles because the quality of the recordings is not that good. And then you go into the 70s, man, and you listen to like Barry White, listen to like Isaac Hayes, Curtis Mayfield, Al Green, you know, all of the popular black music, especially from that time, the recordings, man, were fucking amazing. Ray Charles, James Brown. That's why we can still use those hip hop breaks till this day and put new samples over it and nobody says anything. It feels like today. Like if you listen to anything James Brown, like literally anything James Brown from the 70s, because he came from the 60s too. But you listen to anything from the 70s, the quality of those recordings matches up with the time of today. Like you can listen to This Is a Man's World right now, and somebody could have told you that came out in 2005. And if you don't know the music, you wouldn't know. It's that good. It's really that fucking good. I see Timmy Foosball talking about some Dizzy Rascal. All right, some overseas, Wiley, Stormzy, Dave, Lethal Bizzle is a wild rap name. I'm not familiar with him. Put some respect on us. All right, I got you. Y'all, I respect hip hop, you know, so I got to put respect on that. You know that, bro. Beastie Boys birthed NWA. Ooh, I ain't never heard this one before, No Mets. We're going to have to go out for a beer or something one day. No Mets, hit me up on Twitter, bro. You've been rocking with us too long for us not to get up and go have a beer, smoke us a little J or something. Hit me up, bro. You too close, bro. Hit me up on Twitter. We should link. Especially if I stick around the area for draft time, we should link sometime on one of the draft days, man. Keep me in the loop, brother. Shoot me a DM on Twitter, but we'll spare y'all the hip hop talk. Listen, man. So just to kind of, you know, conclude this all up, I see Navis said Biggie is number one. I got Biggie right there. I got Nipsey right there. I got Dilla right here. Who else is in the other booth? I got Pac in the booth. I got Miles right there. Y'all can't see it. I should just turn the camera. But yeah, Biggie's definitely at the top of the list. New York legend for sure. But I just think, you know, as far as the Giants go, man, you guys, and I know we say this a lot on this channel. I say this a lot on this channel. But just be patient, y'all. We got a whole new regime. And as I described earlier, this is an entirely new tunnel, okay? We're going underneath. We got a new light that we're chasing. What's in the past is in the past. And I understand our frustrations with this team, but when I say have patience, I just mean with the new people that are here. Have patience with Jackson Dart. Have patience with John Harbaugh. Have patience with even Matt Nagy. My dog, y'all got to have patience with Denard Wilson. You got to, right? And just allow them to have their own clean slate. Welcome them with open arms. You know, I'm for the Dexter Lawrence trade to give you my flat out answer. I'm for it. I think it's a good trade at the perfect time. At a player who's, he's probably at the peak of his career, but is he going to get better? I'm not 100% sure. Could happen, but I think the timeline does not quite align with the New York Giants. So I'm good with it. I'm really at peace with that trade. Not for a second, not for a split second was I angry. My best buddy, Patrick, who is the reason I'm a Giants fan, his family moved down here back in the day from New York. This is my sandbox brother. We've known each other since we were 3 years old. And rest in peace to his father, who's the reason why we are all Giants fans. Me, him, everybody that, you know, is Giants fans within our crew. But he hit me up about the Dexter Lawrence trade. He's like, you think Dexter getting traded? And I said, basically, if it's a first, there's a possibility he's going to get traded, and we should consider that. Second round pick, I'd have been upset probably. We got the first round pick that we wanted, so I'm okay with it. And then, you know, he asked me, do you think Dexter's really going to get traded? And I said, I don't think so, to be honest. I think they'll find a way to get this deal done. And then 2 days later, I was like, nah, bro, it's not looking good, because all these reports started coming out from Ian Connor, from Jordan Renan and others. Like, it's not looking good. And Paul Schwartz, who did a fantastic job covering this story as well, it all wasn't looking good. But for me, I'm good with it, man. I'm okay with it. It's in the past, man. We got to focus on the future. And I don't think the Giants' future calls for a Super Bowl in the next year or two. If it does, that's fantastic, but I just don't see that quite happening. If it happens, that's great. And I wish Dexter Lawrence well. I took a couple of shots of whiskey for him, you know, and all the luck in the world is what I'm wishing for Dexter Lawrence. Go get your ring like Leonard Williams got his, like Saquon got his, like Love got his. Go do your thing, man. Go get your ring. I'm not going to be rooting against him. I'm too fucking grown for that shit. And I'm not saying that if you are rooting against him, you're not grown or nothing like that. But just by my morale and my standards, I can't be up here like, man, fuck that fat ass. But I can't do that. I just can't. I'm just not like that. It's just not my style. Same thing with Brian Dable and all the other players that went to Tennessee. I wish all those guys luck, man. Go out there and do your thing. Just don't get in the way of the New York Giants' success. That's all I ask. So Dexter Lawrence, you in the AFC North. Brian Dable and all the rest of them dudes are with the Tennessee Titans. We shouldn't have to see them until the Super Bowl. So I'm going to be wishing them well throughout the entirety of the season. No Mets. I see the Rock Marciano thing. Yeah, Rock is a dog, man. I really ain't like dug into a Rock album since like the debut joint. I think it was called Marsburg. And that shit was so fire. But I just don't listen to as much music nowadays. I do need to get back, you know, on my P's and Q's as far as the music goes. But I'm a big fan of Rock. Definitely a big fan of his. But listen, man, if I don't get to catch you guys before the draft, I hope y'all enjoyed this stream. Feel free to chop it up with me, you know, on Twitter and all that leading up to the draft. If anything changes, if we get some more big news or anything like that, then maybe I'll pop up and do another stream. If I stick around for the draft, because I'm planning on driving up there on Thursday. If I do stick around, I'll definitely pop up on Thursday at some point before the draft, and we'll just hang out. Who knows, maybe pour a glass of whiskey and just chop it up on whatever y'all want to chop it up on. And the lull was definitely not cool. I wanted to put my foot into this draft season a little bit more, just didn't get around to doing it. Like I said, life be lifing. But I'm glad y'all here with me today. That's what's most important. So salute to y'all. Biceps in the chat before we get up out of here, man. It's rewarding to be able to not stream for whatever it was, maybe almost 2 months that I didn't stream for. Definitely at least a month. It's rewarding to be able to come back up here and chop it up with all my day ones, all my dogs that are always in this chat, you know, the Illas, the Dantes, the Bookends, C-Rob, my dog who recommended I should do a stream that hit me up on Twitter, Stacy, Steph. I see all of y'all, man. Like, y'all make this shit go. Like, we just are the birth of it. We the seed of it, right? But y'all make this shit go, man. So big salute to y'all. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets. All my day ones, young. Ayo, been here, a part of this conversation. Timmy, Waterfly, I see all of y'all. Jart was a big part of this conversation today. The Illa, go subscribe to the Illa. That dude puts out great content and like very sound mind, man. Just a very sound mind. Go show him some love. Go subscribe to Dante as well. And yeah, we've been here almost 3 hours. It's been my pleasure. Again, as we leave this stream, you guys can always come back to this point in time in the stream and know exactly what Awthentik wanted to do in the draft. Awthentik wanted to draft Caleb Downs, and he wanted to draft Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, or possibly Carnell Tate. If he couldn't get a wide receiver in the first 10 picks in the NFL draft in 2026, then he wanted to get Casey Concepcion in the second round. Y'all know I love my wide receivers. Y'all know I love my quarterbacks. We already got our quarterback. We got to go get another wide receiver. We do have our wide receiver one, but I want some weapons for that quarterback, man. Jackson Dart, I think he deserves that. So again, man, thank y'all for pulling up. Stacy said, continue blessings to all of y'all. And yeah, that's a wrap, man. This was fun. It was good to get back. Who knows what we might do. I still got to bring up some of these content creators up here. I still got to bring up the Illa. I still got to bring up Big Dash. I still got to bring up Dante. I still got to bring up Diggy. So who knows? Maybe we'll make something happen or make something shake, at least post-draft. But until then, I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Y'all know it's all love from me, man. It was a great stream, just getting to come up here and just be able to just rock out with y'all and, vent some of these thoughts without interruption, most importantly, man. So y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Monday afternoon. I know I will. Got a little bit of work to handle here. And celebrate your 420 to the fullest, because you know I will. And I'll catch y'all on the next Giant overreaction. Hopefully it doesn't happen in 2 months. Y'all know how we end every stream over here on Awthentik and the Beard. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT and New York legend, Combat Jack. And that is a wrap, y'all. I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Y'all be good. Best of luck to the New York Giants in this draft on Thursday. And y'all enjoy y'all week, man. It might be a long one here, just waiting for the draft on Thursday. But make sure you enjoy it, man. I'm sure some party favors today will help you out. And maybe a little whiskey to get you through to Wednesday, man. I hope the New York Giants make the right decision. I hope they just bring in some dogs. That's what's most important, man. Y'all be easy. It was my pleasure again, man, talking ball with y'all. I don't want it to end. I really don't want it to end. But it's got to. Y'all be good. Peace, y'all.